Okay, audio levels? Are we good now?
Check.
We're checking. Okay. I went into my whole spiel. And no audio was going.
It was a good spiel.
It was great.
All right.
Bring the audience up to speed.
Let's do it. Hi there, everyone. This is ABCs of RPGs, where we teach you the basics of tabletop role-playing games. My name is Spencer Reese. I'm your game master for the evening, and I'm joined by my players. Oh no! Me and Justin are switched.
Again? I'm Spencer Reese now. Ow.
Right,
great first stream. Yeah.
Now you have to control the OBS software too. So.
Oh no, not computers.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's my downfall. No.
How dare. Okay. All right. Me and Justin are back. When we go to the other scenes, I will have to fix it. That's okay. All right.
Okay.
My name is Spencer Reese, your game master for the evening, and I'm joined by my players to my right. Yes, is Dalton.
Hi everyone, I'm Dalton.
Then we have to Dalton's right, Justin.
What's up?
Hey. Below me, we have Dan.
What up? I'm Dan.
To Dan's right, we have Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm super excited.
Nice. And to Ashley's right is Christian.
Hi, I'm Christian, and my pronouns are he, him.
Yay! So welcome to the stream. Essentially what this is tabletop RPGs are a form of improvisational storytelling mixed in with rules to bring some structure to them. There's been a huge explosion with Dungeons and Dragons recently, but not too many players try out different RPGs. So what this channel is designed to do is to kind of teach you the basics of different types of tabletop role-playing games that are out there, other than Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, we're starting with Dungeons and Dragons. So today we'll go over how Dungeons and Dragons introduces this style of game to us and give our own advice and experience on how to run a smooth D&D game. So today, let's get started with session 0. I'm gonna go ahead and switch the scene. So now, whoops, wrong scene. There we go. Yep, and me and Justin are switched again. So let me switch that real quick. So, what this is... So, what we're going to go over is kind of like what the Essentials Kit is and how it kind of introduces us to D&D. Because, essentially, Dungeons & Dragons came out with what is called their starter set before they released the 5th edition module that everybody knows and loves today. Module Player's Handbook Edition. Whatever that is. So, so what that all entailed was it came with like a little rule booklet explaining how the basics of 5th edition worked and a few other things. But later on, they came out with another starter type set. Hey, we got a follower. Thank you for following. Pesky Griffey. So there we go.
Nice.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So, this is the Essentials Kit right here. It's a nifty little box just like the starter set. And we're going to be going over kind of like the differences and what it kind of has compared to the starter set. But then also just talking about how, like, in general, it introduces us to D&D. So one of the things it comes with is a fancy set of dice. Look at that. Got a bunch of nice red dice and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. We have a little Dungeon Master screen, which is hinting at what you guys will be facing here pretty soon.
Spoilers!
Oh, sorry.
Foreshadowing.
Hold on, I'll throw it away.
Well, also, as we're introducing new players, don't forget about what's on the other side of that box. It's just really nifty. So if you are the DM, that helps you out with all sorts of like reminders of what the conditions do. I think there's space to keep track of stuff back there. I usually not on that side of the screen. I don't know, Spencer, if you want to elaborate.
Yeah. So
anyway, that's where we can go through.
So,
Wow.
most people when they open up their box, they're just gonna see this assortment of different stuff. They're gonna see dice. They're gonna see this thin paper thing, and they're gonna be like, "What the heck is this?" what is all these different things? What are these papers? What am I doing with this? So what this is it includes kind of like the basic setups for tabletop role-playing games. And I guess we can kind of go over like the players and the dungeon master if we want to kind of go over those roles. So there are 2 roles to play Dungeons and Dragons. There is either the players or you're the dungeon master. And how I like to think of that is essentially when you play a video game, the dungeon master is the video game console. So it has the world inside, it manages everything, it sets the roles, it presents you non-playable characters, NPCs, and how you're going to interact with it. Whereas the players are the controllers. So you put inputs in, you say what you want to do, and the game kind of responds to that. Another follower!
A way to put that. Oh, hey,
yeah.
What's up, new follower? I think that's a really good way to put it for somebody that maybe hasn't done a lot of TTRPG or tabletop role-playing games. But, you know, everybody's played video games, right? That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
That the DM acts like the console in the game itself.
So, essentially... yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Actually, a lot of, honestly, when I think about, like, a lot of, you know, games back from, like, when I was younger, like, a lot of them, actually, video games adopt the D&D, you know, archetype and those stats, like, and how everything is calculated. It's basically like, yeah, so.
It's really...
Like what kind of games?
Red Wizard needs food badly.
Yeah.
Ashley, you asked what kind of games? One of the first examples that I can think of is BioWare. For a lot of their early set games, just straight up took the D&D system and implemented it to their games. A lot of people are familiar with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That is a D20 system, which we'll get into explaining what that is in just a second. But they imported that system into it.
That's cool.
There's literally
cute.
games based off of, you know, Baldur's Gate and everything.
Yes.
Based off of this world. The CRPGs are very closely, I think, the closest related to video game to just playing D&D, right? Like Divinity, Original Sin, things like that.
Yeah. So, it's very cool to kind of see the history of it. I know I read Game Informer every now and then, and they did a top role-playing games list of like a top 100 over the decade, and they put Dungeons and Dragons as number 0 because it inspired everything else. All role-playing games to where they are today take some sort of derivative or inspiration from Dungeons and Dragons. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we see such a big explosion of like people getting interested in tabletop games, because they want to see the roots of it, but also kind of, as we'll kind of explain, it kind of allows you to create whatever you want. It's only limited by your own imagination and your DM's discretion, I guess.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. So, anyways, so this little piece of paper I was showing you, this is called a DM screen. Normally, if we weren't online, I'd be sitting behind this little thing right here. This cozy, what looks like I'm wrapping myself in a blanket right now. This cozy thing right now. And I'd have all of my papers as the video game console, the dungeon master. I'd be keeping track of the NPCs and stuff like that and rolling dice because I don't want the players seeing what I'm doing behind the screens. You don't necessarily always want to show all the stats. There are a ton of different styles to play, though, and some DMs like that. Some DMs don't have a dungeon master screen and they just show whatever's rolled. But we'll kind of go into that more later. So, but the two main important things that are in the Essentials kit are going to be your rulebook, your player's rulebook, and the adventure itself. Now, the player's rulebook is what we're about to get into because the coolest thing about the Essentials kit that we'll kind of talk about that's different from the starter set is that you get to make your own character. Something that wasn't in the D&D starter set and wasn't available until the player's handbook came out was that you couldn't make your own character. The starter set in D&D only has pre-made characters. And I'm sorry if I keep going back to the starter kit and Essentials kit, because I think most people are familiar with the Essentials, or with the starter kit, but not necessarily what we're playing today, which is the Essentials kit. Hopefully that makes sense. But So the cool thing in this adventure, in this little box, is it gives you the basic rules to make a character from level 1 to 6. And we're going to be going over that. As well as like the adventure, which is only for my eyes only. Because I'm the Dungeon Master. So. But yeah. So. I've read ahead with this adventure, which is always key to do whenever you are playing in a Dungeons and Dragons game together, because one of the things that we'll talk about and what this Essentials Kit does is at the very beginning, it gives you advice on how to be kind of a good Dungeon Master, but it also says, like, you know, hey, have your players start to make characters while you read ahead in the adventure. So in order to get everybody involved, let's go ahead and kind of take a look at the beginning of the Essentials Kit rulebook and kind of move into character creation. How's that sound for everyone?
Woo!
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
Okay.
Do it.
So, how do we want to kick it off, buddy? You got a plan for us?
I do. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the first few pages of the rulebook. Now, I'm not sure if everybody else can see this, but what I'm doing in the stream is I am pulling up the rulebook on our chats in the middle of our screen. I'm going to be kind of going over everything that's in here. So there are 4 chapters in total in this Essentials Kit rulebook. There's the first one, or, well, right before Chapter 1, it gives a Welcome to Dungeons and Dragons. Then it goes into Chapter 1, Creating Character. Chapter 2, Playing the Game. Chapter 3, Equipment. Chapter 4, Spells. And then a couple appendices going over sidekicks and conditions that we can kind of go over later, because that's another thing this little adventure book does, is introduces the concept of sidekicks. So, the coolest thing that it kind of starts off with is it kind of describes what I just did. It kind of talks about how it kind of gives examples of how D&D is played. For example, it has Dungeon Master, and then like what they would say to kind of describe the area. Then it has the players responding and how they would move forward. Does anybody else have the D&D Essentials Kit rulebook pulled up? Maybe we could read off on page 2, the first little textbook, or text little thing that it has there.
On page 2?
On page 2, with the Essentials Kit rulebook.
Oh, no, I have the basic rules up.
Oh, that's okay. Christian, you have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Christian, do you want to play Philip the Cleric? I'll be the Dungeon Master. And then if somebody else gets it pulled up, do they want to do Amy the Rogue?
Oh, I have that. Never mind.
Yeah, I have
Sure.
that too.
Okay.
Okay, go for it, Dan.
Okay, Dan's going to be Amy?
You're Amy.
Okay!
Dan, you're Amy.
All right.
Roleplay.
So, I'll go ahead and start it off. As everybody who's tuning into the screen, it is a little green square in the center there that starts off with Dungeon Master. So I'm going to go ahead and read that first section. And I have to clear my throat. I got to get my acting chops all...
Like, you warm up your instrument.
Yeah. Hold on, I got to do some grumbling real quick. Okay.
The grumbling is important. You gotta get
Scotch is my scotch. I like scotch.
Okay.
it.
The castle stands among the trees, the crumbling ruins of 7 round towers jutting up from it like broken teeth, an archway littered with twisted shards of rusted metal gapes open at the top of a short flight of stairs. 2 of the towers, speckled with dark arrow slits, loom beside the entryway, and a dark hall yawns beyond.
Let's send the rogue up ahead to look in and make sure it's safe.
Okay, I'll move to the side and sneak along the wall of the tower until I can peer in through the entrance.
She's like,
She's a witch.
Anybody?
she's a witch. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, all right.
I'm just
Check.
because I talk like this, you think I'm a witch? That's offensive.
She's a rogue witch. I don't know. It's weird.
Oh,
Because I
a
have a
thing.
level in spellcasting doesn't mean I'm not a rogue.
Oh, well, that's a great point. And
More
D&D
fun stuff. You get more of this if you stay in the stream.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
It's gonna be great.
Witches are frowned upon mostly, so you have to be stealthy with it, right?
Yeah. So that brings up a great point, guys, because D&D is fun for all ages, no matter who's playing.
8 to 80.
As long as you have an active imagination, you can play. So yeah. So what that kind of showed was essentially the Dungeon Master, much like that video game console I was describing before, set up the scene, kind of talked about how there's a castle up ahead, and just kind of presented the scene before the players, which was, in this case, Christian and Dan. And then they kind of talked about what they wanted to do. So from there, we can kind of go on to the next set. There is different ways, because that's kind of more of the storytelling and improv acting kind of going on. But we're going to get into kind of the dice rolls and set when we kind of get into it. Essentially, there's several different dice that comes in the set that is how we kind of determine how things play out. And in this next section, me and Amy are going to go over what's called a stealth skill, or a stealth check. So, for example, Amy wants to sneak along the side of the wall of tower. So I'm going to go ahead as DM say, all right, Amy, let's see how sneaky you are. Make a dexterity check.
Oh, with my stealth check, yeah?
You bet.
Oh, I'm pretty sneaky, right? That's a 17.
Okay.
That's an Australian now.
Okay, then.
What happened to Amy?
I don't know. Look, it's okay. She's maybe she's got a throat thing.
Maybe she's a changeling and she just likes to, switch things up, every once in a while. She's adaptive. She's adaptive, okay? Okay, there's no sign that anyone notices you and you're looking inside. Okay, so basically what that just kind of shows is that there's a narrative part where the DM kind of sets up a scenario or scene where he kind of talks about things, and then when players interact with whatever that scenery is, there's going to be dice and checks and rolls to do. So over here on the right side of the rules, you can see how to play. The DM describes the environment, the players decide what they want to do, the DM narrates the results of the adventurer's actions, and that is kind of the core set of what D&D is. And so I think that's a really good way to just kind of start off as a basic explanation of how everything is. So let's go ahead and start moving on in to kind of character creation, because I think what's really important is to kind of go over a character sheet, describe what the different classes are, and explain how things are made. And then as we start to play, which we'll do at the end of the session when we do a combat encounter, we'll kind of see how everything interacts with each other. So,
Hey, Spencer.
Yes, go ahead, Christian.
If you could enlargen the text, zoom in on the PDF, it is rather hard to read on stream.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I just increased it, so.
Oh,
It's a little bit-
fantastic.
I know. Is my camera fuzzy for you guys?
A
Or is
little
it
bit.
just-
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's a little bit easy to read. Still have some brightness / text readability issues with how you're sharing that or something. I don't know.
Huh. Wonder why it's so bright. Well,
It's just looking at the stream, but it's fine. Do what you can.
okay. Ashley left and came back, and I got real scared for a second. But I'm glad we're okay.
Yeah. For everyone watching, thank you for bearing with us. We are getting things ironed out in our first session together.
Yeah.
So
We
did iron things out previously, but
Yeah.
things.
But we're
Technical
still
issues happen.
ironing things
Fun
out.
Yeah.
fact that I just
Yeah.
learned, Discord organizes this alphabetically.
It does.
Here's some gentle maracas.
Perfect. So let's go over what I'll do. I'm gonna bring it up back on the table of contents, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show just basically the three main things to make a character. So Christian, I believe you already have one, but included in the essentials kit is what's called a character sheet. So something, it looks kind of like this, and I'll pull it up on stream in a second, but Christian already has one, right?
Yes, I'm actually doing it digitally.
Perfect.
Currently, but I could write on a sheet as well.
Yeah, either way, I'm not too worried about it. I think doing it pencil and paper is going to be just fine. I'm just going to try to explain it the best way I can while we're kind of going over stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you the 3 main things to creating a character is right over here. It is picking a race, picking a character class, and then picking a background. Now, as you can see here, compared to the normal player's handbook, the Essentials kit has kind of like just like a few of the basics there. It includes 4 races, so like a dwarf, an elf, a halfling, a human. For those who are familiar with Lord of the Rings, D&D has a rich history of being very inspired by Tolkien. And that's putting it nicely. Taking a lot of inspiration from them. So those who are familiar with Lord of the Rings, you can kind of think of halflings as similar to hobbits. Character classes that are included are the bard, the cleric, the fighter, and the rogue. And the wizard, sorry. And then backgrounds are the acolyte, the criminal, entertainer, sage, and soldier. Now, the main thing that's going to define your character, more so than anything else, is your character class. Because your race and your background, with how 5e was originally set up, is just kind of is going to give you just a few basic boosts, to kind of help you out with like abilities and background and like skill set and stuff like that. But the main thing that will define how your character interacts with the world is going to be your class. If you guys want, does anybody want to take turns kind of explaining from your guys' knowledge what each of these different classes are and such like that?
Oh, I can take a stab at that.
Yeah. I want to give you guys some time to talk. I don't want to talk all the time.
You wanna do the first couple, Justin? Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll just start alphabetically then. I'll do Bard and Cleric. So Bard is a full caster class, which means that you get a whole list of spells available to you. The Bard's magic usually hangs out in the charming sort of more, a lot of spells don't have direct combat value, but have a lot of use outside of combat. They do have pretty good spells in combat, especially one of them being one of their cantrips. One of the Bard-specific cantrips, Vicious Mockery, which does a little bit of psychic damage, but almost nothing's resistant to it, and causes disadvantage on that first one. So that's really exciting. You get to kind of do a little like stab debuff from afar using your instrument and stuff like that, and you can do buffs in and out of combat. You can do a little healing. So the Bard is really cool because it offers, and maybe we'll end up talking about this hopefully in a bit, but a big part of what's called the support role. The Bards in 5e, compared to maybe other classes, depending upon whom you ask, are a lot cooler in 5e than they used to be. A lot of classes are actually a lot cooler than they used to be, Paladins included, but they're not part of this. So that's what you get with a Bard. You get lots of spell casting, some abilities outside of spell casting. If you choose the College of Lore, you get to be kind of a little bit more rogue-ish. You get access to like every skill, and you're good at it all the time. And you're a little bit more caster-oriented as the College of Lore, which specializes on retrieving dark secrets from places or holding knowledge, or the College of Valor, which is a little bit more fighty, so you get access to better weapons and armor, and one of the cool things that you can do with the Valor class is you can actually use your Bardic Inspiration to take away from a roll, which can be really huge. So you can take away from an attack roll that may otherwise hit your soft, squishy wizard. So that's really cool. So there's good things about each, with the bard, especially the way that it is here in this rule set, is you have a strong caster who has ways of excelling in combat, maybe outside of damaging magic. Lots of room to be creative.
Yes.
Ways to protect his allies, heal them. So lots of bases touched. The next one is Cleric, also very big in the support role, but can be pretty tanky depending upon what subclass you use and what you like to do. So the subclasses, one of the cool things about Cleric, though, is you get your stuff at level 2 instead of level 3, which is huge.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the things that was a surprise to me, because I remember my first experience with kind of like the roles in role-playing games, like, your healer, your support, your DPS, and your tank. My first experience was World of Warcraft. And so coming from a World of Warcraft experience where it's like the healers only heal, and then starting D&D where it's like, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to heal. And they're like, okay, play a cleric. And then finding out, well, clerics are really good at tanking too. I was like, what? How's that work? How do they heal and tank really good? So I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, clerics are great. So clerics get access to weapons that can do a D8's worth of damage, which is pretty substantial.
Yeah. They
can wear heavy armor, generally speaking. Not all of them, but the two you find in this version both get access to heavy armor. They can use shields. They have healing magic. They have other utility magic. They also have some pretty significant area of effect damage spells that they can pull, which can be really helpful. So that's great. The clerics that we find here are the Cleric of Life, which is a Healy cleric. If you want to be the team doctor, that's the class for you. You are still pretty tough. You get D8 HD, which isn't. It's kind of middle of the road for this game. But your access to plate armor really can kind of help overshadow the fact that you have slightly less hit points. You also have some spells that can boost your hit points, at least temporarily. Clerics of Life get boosted healing. They're I don't want to call them heal bots, because that's not fair to how fun it is to play a Cleric of Life, because they're also super good at destroying undead.
Yeah,
super good at it.
And that's also kind of a general cleric thing, but definitely life domain clerics are very good. Like, they, as it's defined, and I pulled up the page, it's like, the gods of life domain provide vitality through sealing the hick and wounded, caring for those in need, and destroying the forces of undeath. So.
Yes, that's excellent.
Yep.
And then war, you get, you're a tanky cleric. You can't heal as well. Oh yeah, you also get bonus spells in your domains, which is cool.
Yep.
So you get access to a special set of spells that you always have prepared. So one of the cool things about being a Cleric of Life is all the heal spells that you kind of want as a cleric, you already know. So you can memorize all the cool damage or nifty magic you want to, which is real fun. It's actually kind of a great feature of the class.
Yeah.
And
no, go ahead, Justin.
So war, you get swords and better armor and access to more combat-oriented magic. I think you get shield and shield of faith and stuff like that already prepped, which is cool because shield of faith is amazing.
Yeah. You also with your channel Divinity, which we can go over specifically when we get to cleric, but channel Divinity is like calling the power of your god to you to be able to use. Like, one of the things with war clerics is that they get to hit better when they use their channel Divinity. So
they get like an extra attack, right?
Yes.
I think that also brings up another element of this game that we haven't really brought up or talked about yet, is kind of like choosing that god, right, for the cleric, which typically if you're in war, there's a couple you can choose from, right? But I think it's also choosing your alignment. Typically clerics are mostly good, right? But they also can be neutral and technically can be evil.
Yes.
So I think that's another interesting thing to think about when it comes with cleric.
Oh yeah.
And the nice thing about choosing a god or a deity that your cleric has kind of pledged themselves to is that you can really flavor it however you want.
Mm-hmm.
In the last campaign that I played in as a cleric, I was a race that's called a Kenku, which is bird person, and I looked up different bird-like deities to follow and picked this weird mystical bird deity and flavored it how I wanted for the different class that I was going with, which was, I believe, a nature cleric. So the nice thing is that when you're playing a cleric, you're not really locked into these very specific gods per se. You just kind of will pick whatever kind of works with the character and how you want to flavor it. So I really like that element of creativity and personalization that you can do with that. I think that's really fun and a really, really cool way to add your own twist to it, if that's what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So who's up next? We got fighter. I think is the next class.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fighter's next.
I'll take this one. So fighter is. I mean, I guess I don't want to say vanilla, but it is. I mean, nothing's.
It's classic.
It's simple to wrap.
Classic.
People might say it is. I agree with you guys. I think it's like the classic, right? Because it's versatility, right? The fighter, there's so many different things that you can do with it. Even in the essentials kit here, there are really 2 different ways you can go with it that are completely different, right? So the really cool thing about the fighter, so at a high level, your strength and your constitution are going to be your 2 saving throws. Those are going to be the 2 things that you want to prioritize, right? So you want to be able to get up in there, grab your enemy's attention, hit them hard, and be able to soak up damage, right? You need, especially if you're going the more tanky route, which you could go a more DPS route, or you could go a more tanky route, depending on your build. But for the most part, you're going to be up there fighting people. You need to be able to take hits, and those are hit points that you don't want. Let's say your squishies to be taking.
Mm-hmm.
So, like your wizards, your bards, whatnot, right? So the 2 different ways you could really go with the fighter here. The first one, or at least in the essentials, right? So those are the 2 ways in the essentials. The first way is the Eldritch Knight. So the really awesome thing about the Eldritch Knight is you actually get some parts of wizard. So and you don't have to have a spell book. The kind of trade-off is that you don't have a spell book, so you can't lose it or get it stolen, but you only have a limited list of spells. So it's a very much smaller list of spells, but you get to be a fighter and fight and then cast magic. So that's pretty cool. At a base level, actually, taking a step back, at a base level, fighters get proficiency with all simple and martial weapons. That's really nice. So pretty much any weapon you want to pick up, you're going to be able to use. You're going to be able to use it, get your proficiency bonus with it. Ranged weapons, you're typically good with as well. So there's a lot of different, ways to play with fighter, things to do with fighter, and it's always good to pretty much at least make sure you have, a fighter or a similar, type character as well. And the really cool thing about fighter is down the road you get things like extra attack, all that fun stuff, right? So there are 2 ones. The first one was the Eldritch Knight. Second one was the Champion. Champion, pretty much, you get critical roll on 19 and 20, which basically increases your critical percentage chance from 5% to 10% is the way to think about that, right? So definitely pretty big bump. We like improve criticals. So yeah, that's the fighter.
Yeah.
I think the next one is the rogue.
Dan, before we move on from the fighter, one thing I wanted to touch on that. So we were talking about specificity. The fighting style is also a way for you to like make the fighter your own, which I think is a cool feature of the class.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch. That is one thing I didn't touch on. Thanks for touching on it. So like there's everything from archery. So if you want to be able to be good with the ranged weapons, you can do that. If you want to, have a higher defense and play more of the tank, you can do that. I think dueling is pretty cool. Because
I think it's great.
Yes.
One sword. Actually, I did have a question about that when I was reading, and this is a great question for the team.
100%.
Right.
So when you have a +2 bonus, so you have a melee weapon at one hand and no, is that counting as shield? Because is a shield armor or weapon?
A shield counts as armor. So if you're asking that, so the shield, you can still wield a shield and get your dueling bonus.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, right? And well, why would we want a shield? What's so special about having a shield? I mean, it might be obvious to us, but about having a shield?
Well, this is going to be great for when we specifically go into like equipment and stuff like that. But essentially, there is a stat on the character sheet that we can show everybody called armor class, and depending on what type of armor you have, it builds your character in different ways to be able to be harder to hit. And one of the things that just automatically gives you +2 to your armor class is a shield, which is really helpful to have. So as Dan's kind of going into, one of the fighting styles, which is like a way to specifically tune your fighter to a certain fighting style, allows you to get a bonus to attacks in your hand with your weapon, and you can still hold that shield and get the +2 on that end too. So it's a nice way to kind of add that to it. One of the things that sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the one funny thing that I like about shields is it doesn't matter if it's made out of wood or what it's made out of, it's still going to give you +2, which I think is so broken that you can have a wooden shield and you can have a metal shield, and your wooden shield's just going to protect you just the same.
Yeah. And
I love that.
So in older versions, they did have different armor for different shields. Yes, but I think one of the things, and I don't want to, I think one of the things that they tried to do with, and why the new D&D 5e has been so successful, is because it's a lot lighter on much of the math that used to be present, especially in like 3.5 or the advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where you had to your armor class equals, you had to figure out. You had to do kind of like a lot of math to hit somebody. It was called FACO.
Yeah. To hit armor class 0.
Yeah.
Which thank goodness we're not going over that.
Yeah, it's way easier this way.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing an intro to the Dungeons and Dragons world. If you haven't played Dungeons and Dragons before, going back through older editions can be fun when you're a lot more familiar with the system.
Experienced, yeah.
But this is really accessible, and rather than figuring out what shield did what, it's just like, boom, shield bonus.
Yeah.
You got it.
I have pulled up all of the armor on screen right now, but this is definitely something we'll go more into when we're going through like equipment and stuff like that for building the character, because we're just going over the basic of classes, because that's going to be one of the main things that you pick first off, especially when building your character. But just to show everybody, one of the cool things is that 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons is probably the most accessible version that we have yet, which is probably one of the reasons why it's such a big boom and stuff like that. And so, as Ashley was saying, and what Justin was saying, while certain editions definitely could have been harder or more specific, in 5th edition, what we're currently work with, shield, no matter what, is just +2 to your AC. So, got a tower shield, +2 AC. Got a wooden shield, +2 to AC. Is made out of cardboard, still +2 to AC. Yep. So there we go. But we can move on to the rogue next. Ashley, were you excited to do that one?
I'm excited to do that one.
Okay.
So, we didn't really talk about this at the beginning of the stream, but we have a variety of experience among the people here.
We do.
Justin is probably the one who's been playing the longest. He's been playing for at least a decade, right?
Wow. You wound me.
Am I wrong?
You wound no.
Um,
Not technically or in any way.
Yeah, and then Dalton, Dan, and Spencer all have at least 5+ years of D&D experience, I would say, whereas I only have about a year and a half of experience of D&D.
Yeah.
And Christian down there is our baby D&Der, and he has DM'd part of a campaign of murder hobos.
Yeah, the first time I've ever played.
Yeah, so this will be his first time playing in a campaign, which is exciting. But
Yeah.
the player, like the class that I am most familiar with is the rogue, which is like the only one that I feel comfortable talking about, which is why I volunteered for that. And I really like playing a rogue. I think it's really fun. Rogues are a stealthier character. They tend to be more of like your background type character, but don't discount them. That doesn't mean that they're a sidekick per se. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that doesn't mean that they can't hit hard either, and that they can't be very valuable, even though they're not necessarily going to be on the front lines in your campaign. Rogues tend to focus on stealth and deception. Those tend to be kind of the things where they gain a lot of those strengths from. And there are 2 different kind of archetypes that are in the Essentials kit, and that would be the Thief archetype and the Arcane Trickster archetype. For the Thief, that's exactly what it sounds like. You're very good at kind of doing those kind of more questionable things, like pickpocketing and picking locks and things like that. But different rogues are going to use those talents in different ways. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're like kind of a seedier character. It could just be that you're, it's kind of more like a secret agent kind of thing is kind of how I would think of it. And then the other, what were you going to say?
I said, that's how I'm going to play it.
Yeah, nice. Then the other one is Arcane Trickster, and that one uses the stealth, and they focus more on like stealth and agility as opposed to like stealth and deception as what a thief would do. And these ones, they can be pickpockets and pranksters and stuff like that, but they use magic a little bit more as opposed to your thief, who is not going to use magic very much at all. But you'll get some spell casting with the Arcane Trickster, which is a nice little flavor that goes along with that. My favorite thing about a rogue ever is sneak attack, and it can be kind of broken at really high levels, and I love that about it. So sneak attack, you get that starting at first level right off the bat, and basically what that means is that when you do damage to an opponent, as long as that opponent is already engaged to another player, so that they are already fighting someone else. Let's say that Dalton is on the front lines and he just took a swing at this goblin, and I choose to shoot that goblin with my arrow in the background as a rogue. I am going to deal extra damage because it's considered a sneak attack. The goblin didn't see me coming because he's too busy focusing on Dalton smacking him with a sword.
And he will see no more.
Yes. But the really nice thing is that damage increases as you level up. And there are also some other really nice things that really help with being sneaky and evading things. So there's like cunning action and uncanny dodge. And both of those things are really going to help with your reactions and make you pretty much make you a lot harder to hit. in a campaign that I am currently playing in, we have a rogue on our team, and he is basically invisible whenever he wants to be. And nobody can hit him because he's so good at sneaking away, and now he has a ring of invisibility. So don't discount your rogues. They can end up being pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty fun. Even though you don't get a lot of hit points, you're not necessarily a tank, you can still deal a lot of damage, and you can still do a lot in the background. So
yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add to that.
Well,
that's kind of my take on a rogue.
I think you're touching on a lot of great points here. I think you're doing a great job of kind of explaining like what the rogue does and their different archetypes and stuff. And to all the viewers who are listening in are just kind of like maybe overwhelmed a bit with all the information. Don't worry too much about like archetypes and all that kind of stuff. All we're trying to do is trying to convey how these different classes interact on the field and in a role-playing sense. Like, what are these characters good at doing, and what, kind of clicks with you? So, like, for example, as Ashley was talking about with the rogue, they're not really going to be on the front lines by themselves. They want to make sure somebody else is out there, like a cleric or a fighter, distracting the enemy, so they get their extra sink-in damage, like Ashley was describing with, like, shooting that goblin and stuff like that. So if that's something that appeals to you, if you're like, I don't necessarily want to be, like, out there slamming a big giant sword, but I want to rack up a lot of damage and be a good kind of support role in that sense, while also sneaking around and unlocking stuff, Rogue's your character. If you want to do a lot of healing while also being able to take a lot of damage for your team, that's a cleric. If you just kind of want to be a classic good at everything, no matter what weapon is in your hand, that's a fighter. If you kind of want to like be a good support class that is a little bit different from a tanky cleric, but more of a spellcasting support, Bard's your guy. And of course, we're going to go over our last class, our wizard, here in a second. But just for everybody who's listening, I want to make sure that like we'll go into how you level up throughout this entire process and as we go through the campaign. But for the most part, we're just trying to get a good feel of all the different classes. Sorry, I was just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page. So, who wants to go over the wizard?
I can go over the wizard real quick.
All right.
Yay.
Wizards are going to be your scholars. They get their magic from research and learning. Clerics, they get their magic from their god and their piety, and bards get their magic from their performance. But wizards get it from learning and books. Wizards are not just like cloistered scholars working in a library, but the thirst for knowledge calls for them to go seeking an adventure to learn more about the world and broaden their magical horizons. They're going to be a class that, in terms of gameplay, focuses a lot on casting spells and doing damage casting those spells. It's similar to like a cleric or bard in that you might not always be on the front lines, but you will be kind of back in the second row, throwing off big fireballs or blasts of cold. The Essentials kit has a couple different ways to play wizard.
Mm-hmm.
There is evocation wizards and transmutation wizards, and whereas rogues get a choice of their arcane trickster or thief, the wizard is mostly just going to be picking what type of magic they specialize in. So an evocation wizard is going to be very focused on elemental spells like conjuring fire or cold or things like that, whereas the transmutation wizard is more focused on modifying energy and matter in the world around you in different ways. I know that I could go on a long time about wizards' spell lists and everything they can do, but the important thing is that wizards love their spell book and they love doing things with their spell book.
They sure do. Thank you, Dalton. So, I think what I love to roll into whenever I'm doing a session 0 is to kind of explain, like, the game, like we just did, where we explain kind of, like, I love to use the video game console metaphor, kind of give an example about how a typical D&D kind of setup is, which is, like, the DM describing, players describing their actions, and DM saying what happens next type deal. And then I like to go into classes, because classes is going to be what your character is, what you're going to be doing day to day. And now I think it's a great time to move on to our character sheet and kind of just show you how to build a character yourself. So,
Awesome.
One of the cool things here is, as we were describing before, that Christian has played a bit of D&D before, but today we're going to be walking him through how to create a character all by himself. So I've just pulled up the form-fillable character sheet that I have here. But Christian, do you want to describe your own experience with D&D so far? And as a new person, like, what's made you want to get into D&D? And kind of what's been the challenges so far, or what have you been most excited about with it?
Sure. Yeah. So I started my foray into Dungeons and Dragons with DMing a group of friends from school a couple years ago now. It was all of our, basically everybody was new to it. So there was a lot that was learned. It was also kind of difficult because I think a lot of people were on different pages on what they wanted to get out of it, which is important going into a campaign. And ultimately it didn't work out. This kind of goes into like what I enjoy when I want to get out of it. Is that I'm much more interested in stories and storytelling and you know, kind of role playing and, you know, experiencing that, kind of getting out of the real world for a moment in time and experiencing something else that can bring joy and all that. So and in that previous campaign, you know, other people kind of wanted to just you know, be goofy, screw around and stuff. So so largely that ended there, and I wanted to give it another shot. So
Perfect.
There's a lot that I don't know, and we'll go through the character sheet and everything else that hopefully I'll be able to help other people watching along with me kind of learn together. But I think, and this is kind of a precursor, like hinting at how my character is going to be created, kind of just mirroring how I feel about the world and a lot about my personality and I'm excited to get started with it. So
Perfect. Christian brings up a great point. One of the privileges that I've kind of experienced in my time is I've always played D&D with someone who knew the game. And that's really easy no matter if you're playing a tabletop RPG or just picking up a board game at the store. It's always easier, instead of going through the instructional booklet, to have somebody go, oh, no, this is how you play, da-da-da-da-da. Hopefully, this is a good enough guide, and especially as we go through the episodes with the Essentials Kit, that you can watch this and be able to emulate your own D&D session just as well. So one of the things that Christian did a great job at telling me is that DMs out there, if you're new to DMing, the important thing is to ask your players what they want to do in this Dungeons & Dragons tabletop setting. And the reason why that's important is because, like Christian discovered, some people just want to goof around and mess around. That's not wrong. Everybody gets out something different from D&D. And one of the best things about D&D is that it can be a multitude of different things. Do you like number crunching and trying to figure out how you can do the most damage in a certain situation? D&D has that. Do you want great stories? Do you want to experience different narratives and how everything can weave together in you to accomplish goals, like what Christian wants? There is that. It's the great thing about D&D is that it has all these different angles to go through. And as I'll kind of go through as we're playing this adventure, there's different opportunities for you to add in your own creations to help fulfill what your players want in the game. I won't spoil too much because that's going to be the fun of playing D&D and stuff like that. But after we complete each major milestone in the game, I can kind of go over what the quest provided to me and what I may have changed in order to help our players get what they want out of D&D. Hopefully that made sense. I think it did. So, Dalton, what we'll do is we'll kind of go through and see what everybody likes the most about D&D and what they kind of want out of this Essentials Kit adventure, and then we'll go more into the character sheet and kind of like building the character. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Let's do it.
All right,
Do that.
Dalton, you're right up top. What is your favorite thing about D&D, and what do you want to do in this campaign?
My favorite thing about D&D has always just been an excuse to hang out with friends and get to have some fun times with people that I like to be around. Not to say that I also don't love the number crunching aspect of it. I like to see big numbers, big dice rolls, rolling lots of dice. That's always a blast.
Yeah.
12s, right on the 12-sided dice all day.
Those big chunky D12s, love them. And this campaign is similar. I mean, I'm just looking to have a good time with some friends, and looking forward to getting to share that with the wider audience.
Perfect. Thank you, Dalton. All right, Justin, you want to take on the next one? What's your favorite part about D&D?
I mean, Dalton touched so much on so many favorite. I have no favorite part. I love all parts of D&D, like making characters for no reason and throwing them away. I like having big, long campaigns with not a lot of structure. I like having little short, or sometimes not so short, like module campaigns structured right out of the book. Silly campaigns. It's always fun to have, because you have these cool bonds at the table too, which is really fun. Like, your character will really jive with somebody else's character, and you get a shtick. And that's really fun. It's nice to have that kind of unique personal connection with people when that aligns up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that might be my favorite thing, but I like it.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Justin. All right, Dan, what is your favorite thing about D&D, and what do you want out of this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, very similar to Justin, it's hard for me to choose a favorite, right? There are so many things that I love about D&D. I mean, it helps me be closer to others, right? Creating those bonds at the table, not just between the characters, but between the people with those characters. I think for me, though, my favorite thing, if I had to pick one, would be the role-playing aspect of it, and being able to really flesh out that character, figure out what their backstory is, what their motivation is, and be able to, as Christian said before, kind of escape that escape for a moment, be someone else for a moment, or play as someone else. Maybe you make a character who's super brave, and you can be brave in this circumstance.
Yeah.
Or maybe you make someone who's a complete dolt, right?
Yeah.
And you get to run around.
I
and
love
be
playing a
I'm
beautiful
sorry.
idiot.
Yeah.
It's the best.
I know, right? It's pretty fun. So, I think that's probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Is just coming up with a good character and playing that. And I think that's kind of part of what I'm looking for this campaign. Honestly, for what we're looking to do now, I really, feel really good about what we're trying to show everyone. Hey, this is how you play the Essentials Kit. This is how you create a character, and I just want to do this as best as we possibly can, so that everyone gets a good vision of it, gets a good insight. to what's going on, right?
Yeah. So they can make their own stories.
Right, exactly. So they can make their own stories. He gets it. There you go.
Yes.
They can create their own characters.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. So, role-playing aspect, I want to go to Ashley next and kind of ask her thing, but that's something I agree with you. I think probably my favorite part is definitely role-playing as well. My last campaign, I played a bard that was very comical, made fun of everyone, and my current campaign that I'm in with a few people I'm playing a big, giant, hulking barbarian. And he is gruff, and he is not like that at all. So, yeah. And that's one of the cool things about D&D, is you can play all types of characters. Ashley, what is your favorite part about D&D, and what do you want out of this campaign?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to answer that question, I'm going to go a little bit further back into starting D&D. I was very reticent to play D&D for the first time because there's a lot of rules. It's really nerdy. It's got lots of stereotypes. And I was like, I don't want to be that girl, I don't want to be that girl. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's not. And I am, but it's fine. But I was really nervous to join, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so lame. There's people dressing up in costumes and fighting dragons and stuff, and it is lame, but it's really fun. It's like,
when did you guys dress up in costumes? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Actually, we never dress up in costumes, but that's going into kind of LARPing. That's the intersection. But yeah, it's So I guess what really made me stay, I guess, when I started playing D&D is the creative aspect of it. That is what really appeals to me. I've always enjoyed reading. I've always enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed being in this other world, like other people have said, just escaping into this whole new world. And that is what I like so much about D&D, is that opportunity to do that in a different medium from reading and writing. I like that it's a social way to do that, to kind of create that whole world and these characters and their interactions with people, other people. I think that's really cool, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And that encompasses the role-playing and, they're creating of a story and things like that. So it's really just the creativity that D&D gives me and how you can really do with it whatever you want. What I really enjoyed about, like, the first character that I really played was that I played a rogue that stole a bunch of stuff and kind of didn't care about people. And in my real day-to-day life, I like to think that I'm a really nice person, and I try to be a really good person. And it was honestly really fun to play a bad person. Like, it's really fun to just explore being someone else, regardless of how that is. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's a really long, drawn-out answer. But as far as what I really want to get out of this campaign specifically, I really like puzzles. I think puzzles are really fun, so I'd love to play some more puzzles and riddles and try to crack things like that. And I really am interested in that story building and creating those connections with my party members and things like that. I think that's really fun. And, like, I enjoy combat. Combat's not bad. It's always fun to sink an arrow into a bad guy. I have no complaints about that. But those first two things are what really I enjoy and what I'd like to get out of this campaign. And then lastly, I would just like to, more specifically, just explore a new class that I haven't really played before, since I am one of those less experienced players, and I've really only played like a rogue extensively and then a little bit of cleric. So I'd like to explore some new things and, see what else drives it.
Do it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's great, Ashley. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's one of the...
answer.
Yeah. So that's fantastic to hear. And one of the things I want to tell everybody at home, especially DMs or people who want to DM, is that sometimes people won't be as direct about what they want to say, but like sometimes you can kind of understand what they want to accomplish just by what they're kind of briefly describing. One of the things I will say, though, is Ashley was very direct and said, I want puzzles and riddles. And and that is fantastic because this campaign doesn't really have a whole lot of those. So that instantly sends a message to me, put in some puzzles and riddles that Ashley's character can figure out and the party can as well. One thing I will say is that while I'll be adding that in, there are some players that I've played with who absolutely hate puzzles and riddles. And you will have players like that. And it is good to know in this kind of session 0 setting is when you're asking your players what they want to get out of it. Sometimes they will directly or indirectly tell you what they do not like to do. So that is key to understand what that is. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into making Christian's character. So, Christian, we have described each of the base classes for you. We can go over the different races and stuff like that as well. And backgrounds, I'll get into once we kind of pick your class and everything. So, was there a particular class that stood out to you?
Yeah, so I put a little bit of thought into it beforehand, so I was somewhat prepared. But I think I'm going to kind of model this character off of myself, but also try and role play it in ways that I feel like maybe I can't exactly express in real life. So I think that's an important thing for me as a role player and playing this game. So that's what I'm going to do. So I love music. I think music is absolutely, honestly, I think music can change the world. I think it can affect the world in positive ways. I like singing, so I figured, why don't I make a bard and just try it out, and see how that goes. So, yeah.
Perfect. Let's do a bard then. So, I'll go ahead and type in bard right at the top there, and I'm gonna scroll up to our little bard section. So we can start kind of building our character right off of what it says, how to build a bard and whatnot. So the good thing is, when you start off in D&D, especially level 1, there is not much that you have to do to build a basic character, because level 1 doesn't give you a whole bunch of abilities or anything like that. The greatest thing that D&D does is that at the beginning, especially from level 1 to 3, it just kind of slowly introduces you rules of how to play, and it doesn't bombard you with a bunch of skills at once. We were going a lot of different skills right at the beginning, but the good news is it's not going to be... with D&D, you're only going to have a few things you have to do. So 2 things I want to highlight for people to follow along when they're building their characters is... for the bard specifically, in page 11 of the creating a character, the rules player's handbook, blah 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 blah, there is, and this is in the player's handbook as well, a handy little table that's at the bottom of page 11, and it says the bard, and it shows you at each level what you're going to get. Now this is, in my opinion, the best thing 5th edition did, was give you a table that shows you everything you get and what changes in your character each level. So if we look at the Bard's table at the bottom of page 11, you see first level. It shows you what your proficiency bonus is, your features that you get, spellcasting and bardic inspiration, shows you what dice you would use for bardic inspiration. That's what the D6 stands for. You can tell when somebody is a tabletop role-playing player because they refer to a dice as a D6 instead of just dice. And it goes into spells that the bard would know. So it talks about cantrips, how many are known spells, and first level as well. Now, that's a lot to take in right at the beginning, but I'm just going to be referring back to the table as we kind of build this character. So that's really good for people at home to be kind of following along, because each level you get, if you're like, wait, do I get this thing? Do I get this skill? What do I increase real quick? This is a handy little table that you can just use as a reference to kind of like understand what you get. So, what we can do first off, another helpful thing that I always love to have players understand is that if you're struggling at the beginning and don't know what you should put your like points into or all this other stuff, there is a quick build section always like right next to the table or near the table that I love to use. The quick build section is not going to be for everyone, because sometimes you want to build your own character yourself, but if you're having trouble like, oh, there's so many different points, I don't know what to do with this, a quick build shows you instantly what you should put stuff into. Which, for example, for the Bard, it says Charisma should be your highest ability score, followed by Dexterity, and choose the Entertainer background. Now, we're going to get into that, but let's go ahead and shift back to the character sheet and kind of go over what we're looking at here. Because there's a lot of stuff. Yes, go ahead, Dalton.
While you and Christian are going to make Christian's character.
Yes.
Do we as a group want to decide what everybody else is doing so we can kind of make our characters in the background while you go over Christian's character on stream?
Absolutely. Did anybody else have any ideas of what kind of characters and classes they want to make?
Actually, before we dive into that, so if you are playing with more experienced people, help your DM out and help walk through maybe somebody that's like, the next lowest, or somebody that had more experience as well. The DM like sat if there was a new person at the table, because that's kind of how this would go down, because the new person is going to get like the DM's
full attention,
undivided. So Dan, I think you were saying fighter.
Yeah. I want to hack him. I want to slash him. I want to beat him up.
Slap him up.
And I want to do it.
Are we thinking like a traditional like adventuring party, just like a bunch of adventurers going on missions, or did we want like some?
We could touch on that while Christian's getting set up. So there's 4 traditional roles. Do we want to talk about that, Dalton?
I was more thinking in a role play ish sense than like strictly mechanics. Like as we're picking and creating our character, I'm thinking about why are our characters together? Is it just because we're a group of adventurers looking to go on some quests and make some coin and like doing our own individual thing, or was there something more specific?
Well, I think it helps to know what everyone's class is for,
And we can tie it together after the fact.
Yeah, that's really, I guess that's an interesting way to think about it, just because different ways of approaching the situation. Like Dan and I, we're both looking at it. We want to go at it from opposite directions.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be more curious to see what people want to play, and then I think that it's a little bit easier to tie that in rather than being like. I think it helps people from feeling awkward if they wanted to do something and they're like, oh, well, this doesn't really fit
with
So, going off of that, the cool thing is, in this adventure book, it actually talks a lot about that. So, it goes over kind of like the first session in kind of like character creation. And one of the things it talks about is like, so if there are multiple players in the group, encourage them to choose different classes so the party has a range of abilities. But then right after that, it says, it's less important that the party includes multiple races or backgrounds, and as sometimes it's fun to play an all-dwarf party or a troupe of adventuring entertainers. So that's one of the cool things, is that it does, in the Essentials Kit, it encourages you to play different roles, but also it says, like, hey, whatever you guys find the most enjoyable. If I was always going to say, if everybody in the group wanted to play a bard, one of the things that I could do is introduce like the sidekick rules, which is basically a NPC that I control that travels with the party and assumes a role that the other party members don't fill. Like, say we had a good party that didn't really have a frontline attacker, I could have a sidekick that plays kind of like that fighter role. But since we have a lot of players, and it sounds like everybody wants to do different stuff, there's all sorts of different things we can do. And going off of like how our characters know each other, one of the things it does say in here, it says, questions to ask. Here are some questions you can ask the players as they create their characters. And I'll tell you guys this now, but I was holding off on asking these until we created the characters, but I think it was a good time to bring it up. So Are any of the characters related to each other? What keeps the characters together as a party? And what does each character like most about every other member of the adventuring party? And I think this is a good thing I can ask again after we've made our characters, but those are good things I think to keep in mind. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I wonder if, like, maybe we could choose, like, our races, you know?
Yeah.
And then like, that would kind of help pick the story, and then it would go, then we can pick the class. What would you think about that, Dalton?
Hey, that's fine, too. I mostly bring it up, and my thought process is I normally pick, like, a type of person and flavor, and then I go to a class afterwards, like, what class fits that style of person best, rather than the other way around.
That's so interesting.
And I'm coming in without any real bias towards wanting to play one particular class or any other, so I'm very open and don't want to, and was just kind of looking for some guidance, like where I could really go. So it sounds like we have a bard and a fighter. Ashley, or do you have an idea of what you kind of want to play? I know you said you played rogue in the past and wanted to try something new.
Yeah, so going off what you said earlier, I am the total opposite when I make a character. I'm like, I am gonna pick a class that sounds cool and has stuff that I want to do in it, and then kind of create a character around that class that fits with that role. That is so interesting to me because I have never once considered saying, I want to play this type of person, and then picking a class that fits with that person. That is so different, and I really enjoy thinking about it like that. That is pretty cool and very different from how I think. So as far as classes, I don't want to play a fighter, which works out well. I have played a fighter briefly once, and I didn't really enjoy it. I don't really like being on the front lines a whole lot. I like being more in the background. I've played a rogue and I enjoyed it, but I'm trying not to play a rogue this campaign if I can, just because I want to experience other things. So I was kind of in between those last three classes, the bard, cleric, and wizard. I like the spellcasting side of things, which all three of those classes have, and I'm not really sure where to go within that range, to be completely honest, and I was looking for input from you guys on that front.
What do you want to play, Ashley? Like, if you could just pick, like, if we, like, it was just, like, we were all doing it, like, blind bid. It was just nobody, we went into a box each, and we just picked a class and whatever.
I'd probably try to be a bard. I think bard sounds fun.
You should be a bard, then.
There you go.
You guys don't mind if we have two bards?
No.
It's really, honestly, with the way that bards work, you can kind of complement each other really well, and you have a lot of you have a lot of cards in the deck if you have two bards.
Yeah. So the important thing is, like Justin's saying, is that bards are very adaptable to different instances. While me and Christian are making his bard, it's good to keep in mind what Christian is putting his skill proficiencies in, which is something we'll go over in a second. But it's good to keep in mind what he's proficient in, because it might be good for you to pick other skills to do, because that's an important thing. Is that I've heard other stories. I haven't encountered this myself, but I've heard other stories. Is that sometimes if you're playing a similar character to another person in the party, one person might outshine another, or you might be competing with each other. And unless you guys are okay with that, or have that kind of energy or dynamic, that might be more conflict within the party than kind of like helping out with it. Does anybody disagree, or is that okay?
No, I mean, I think with bards, it's kind of particularly unique because actually the fact that they can double up on skills allows them to aid each other. If you look at the rules about how helping someone works, they also might have different kind of modifiers, so they can use. But if there's overlap on skills, that's not the end of the world.
That's
the way
true.
that the rules work.
Yeah.
Because with the way that so if you want to do something, right, viewers, if you want to do something in the Dungeons and Dragons world, you will have to use one of your abilities and then perform some sort of related check. So if you wanted to play piano, typically speaking, that's you would
performance?
Roll the d20.
Oh, sorry.
Right. So it'd be a performance roll. Although I think that playing the piano should be performance in, but that's just me, because you have to like think and learn how to play piano. You can't just do it unless you're like Paul McCartney.
What about performance
or, like,
decks?
Dave Grohl. Yeah. I mean, like if you're a juggler, yes, I do think performance deck should also be a thing if that's like your deal, because there's like one of the bard colleges that juggles swords and like that's their deal. That's like what they do for their performance piece. But you also have the two subclasses with the so you can have kind of a more fightery oriented bard, and he can take, or they could take more combat oriented, because there are combat oriented skills that the bard has. They're just kind of more utility casting. But then the College of Lore, if you have one of each, then you will basically never fail a skill check, which is kind of cool. And then you have one that's a little bit more fighty, one that's a little bit more castery. So I don't, as if they're happy, if you guys are happy playing your classes, I think you should just go for it.
Then there we go.
That's like the end.
And the thing is, and this comes down to like how we build it or whatever before we get to like background and stuff. But like, if we wanted to, we could just be twins or something.
Ooh!
Oh my god, that'd be awesome.
We should be like twins, or we should definitely come into this knowing each other somehow. Like we're in a troop together or something.
You met in the circus.
Yes.
Yeah,
we are twins that were separated at birth, and then we reunited in the circus because we were so similar to each other.
So I do.
Dueling banjos.
This is a good. I think this is a good opportunity too to express that Christian really wanted music to be a part of his character as a bard, but I do want to let you guys know that bard doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play a musical instrument. That is a part of like what the bard can do and channel the music, but I've seen other bards be like an entertainer in different ways. Whether they're good, like they can have good charisma and like talk their way through stuff, or like juggle, or like acrobatics. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with music. The good thing about D&D is that you can flavor things, and when I say flavor things, meaning like how you want to describe your actions or how you do things to whatever you kind of want to do. So that's really important to know too. But
what about you, Justin? What kind of class were you thinking?
Ooh, I got one lined up for each. There really is. I do. I have a subclass lined up, ready to go. Not ready to go, but I can make it pretty quick. Because the transmutation wizard looks fun, and if we're gonna do the whole traveling troupe thing, like that's awesome, because then you have somebody who's like snake oils and all whatever, like prestidigitation, that sort of thing. There was also the Arcane Trickster looked kind of cool. The Eldritch Knight looked cool, and 2 Eldritch Knights are also going to be great together. There's a lot. I feel like you can have a lot of fun with it anyway. Yeah, and then Life Cleric. I don't think I've played a Life Cleric yet. So, praise the sun.
Praise the sun.
Nice. Yeah. Listening to some of the people's ideas, I was thinking an evocation wizard could be kind of fun, maybe themed around a person who like specializes in like special effects for the other bards' performances.
Ooh.
Like they're setting off like fireworks and like big light shows and stuff for the bards. That might be kind of fun.
Awesome.
That'd be amazing.
Or I was thinking maybe doing a rogue who was kind of like their friend A, kind of like a bodyguard, or like a behind the scenes like bouncer, like keeping fans from getting too close, kind of thing. I think that could be fun.
Keeping the groupies from getting handsy.
Yeah. They're getting too
like that.
They're getting too chummy. We gotta knock them down a peg.
As the fighter, I was thinking I was gonna probably be like the bouncer or the roadie or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
And if you want to do that, if you want to be the muscle as the fighter, Dan, I could maybe go evocation wizard, and be like the special effects guy.
I think that'd be dope.
Justin, what are you thinking?
I think I'm your doctor because you guys sound dangerous.
Like the D&D version of just seeing the Pussycats.
Is that life?
I might go. Yeah, if that. Yeah, I'm gonna go life cleric. I might take something fun, like instead of the acolyte background, I might take the entertainer background.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a very scared war gong.
Yeah, so wait, we're a troop just doing a show.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine Dalton just
actually, you know what? Actually, I think
with a spell.
speaking of Josie and the Pussycats, I think I found. Yeah, no, I did. I found a tambourine for me to play. Just shake the tambourine. Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like we've all got ideas for what we want to do. If we all want to, if we all want to split off, Spencer and Christian, if you guys want to start going and making that character, the rest of us can kind of go off.
Sounds good.
We'll all still be on stream, kind of bringing stuff up and talking about things, but it sounds like we have a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
A big drum in the background.
Perfect. So, just to let everybody know, so they're all in check, we are about halfway through our stream. It's 8:30 right now. Our normal times that we want to do this is for about a 3-hour period from 7 p.m. Eastern Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So what we're going to go through right now is everybody else, like Dalton said, is going to be start making the troop, their characters. It's starting to all come together. While me and Christian are going to go over kind of the character sheet and just make his character as is right here. So let's get on into it. So, Christian, just so you kind of know everything that's right here. You know what? Do you guys want to take a break real quick? We can go to the bathroom and just 5 minutes and come back.
Yeah, let's do a mid-session break.
Okay.
Or halftime.
Halftime break. Let's do it.
Mission.
Okay, I'm gonna switch to our break music. We'll be right back.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Okay, what, Justin?
Yeah, good. That's our little tone right there.
I can't hear it. Can you guys hear it?
Nothing.
Oh, really? Is it okay? It's really quiet.
Nothing.
Well, that's good.
Did you cast silence? I can't hear a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was nerdy.
Castumatology fails.
Oh man. Okay, cool.
Sound?
All right, 5-minute break. Let's go ahead and take that real quick. We'll be back right back. We'll make Christian's character soon. See you guys in a second.
Wait.
Hold on, I had to undo. Okay, audio's back and everything. We're back in. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back, everybody.
Oh man, I'm sorry, audience. You just missed some amazing conversations. Would anybody like to summarize what was just decided?
Luchadors.
Yeah, some of us are luchadors. Some of us have other entertaining capabilities. But Dan and I are going to be luchadors. And I'm also the doctor.
That's incredible. I'm so excited.
Justin's thinking about doing magic tricks with his doctor stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I can make the map sound really loud. It sounds like way worse than it is. I can actually do that. That's one of the uses of my little side magic.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. We're going to go into the character creation. Me and Christian are going to go through our character sheets while all of our other party members are going to be filling out their own character sheets in the background. One thing I do want to touch on that's really important for Session 0 and whenever you're playing D&D is just making sure what everybody's comfortable with and stuff like that. The reason why I'm bringing this up now is essentially, Dan, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but I was about to go into the next section, and then because we're all on Discord, Dan messaged me and said, hey, do you want to take a halftime break? And I was like, oh yeah. So that's a really good way to kind of if anybody's uncomfortable at the table in D&D, because there are tons of horror stories about terrible sessions going on where somebody introduces a role-playing element that somebody else is not comfortable with having. So what is good to, and what do you do in that scenario? Well, a good, important thing to make sure that everybody's comfortable at the table is to have a system in place to kind of like subtly let whoever is DMing or other players who are playing to know, like, hey, let's move on. Let's move past from whatever's happening right now. So I think a good thing to kind of go over with everybody here is that if anybody wants to move on from a certain scenario that they don't feel comfortable with, we have Discord up, and let's just say, how about you... Oh, is my mic peaking? Oh, thank you. Okay, hold on. I am too loud for my mic. Let me turn that down a little bit. I have a loud, proud voice.
I think, to piggy off of that, it's really important, piggyback off of that, right?
Yes.
I think it's really important to remember, I mean, this, fun, this is a game, know, everyone, and there is that role-playing element, and you can kind of lose yourself in the numbers and the mission and, like, what you're trying to do. And I think it's really important to remember that everyone generally is going to try to kind of do their own thing, but it's also important to remember that you're checking with your party, and you're having conversations and dialogue around, hey, what is our mission? Because if you have, basically just, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that are getting together every Sunday and just basically doing their own thing and going off rogue and being the wild card, I don't think your group's going to last very long, right? If I were a betting man, which I am, I'd say that, more likely than not, your group's not going to last very long if you're like it. So communication is absolutely key, whether it's some sort of subtle system. We're all here to have fun. We're all here to, play a game, right? At the end of the day, like you're supposed to be playing with your friends. You want your friends to have fun while they're playing a game, right? So making sure there's a system for people to be able to pause or move on or something.
Exactly.
It's so important.
We could have a safe phrase.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I think that's good to have at the table, or a hand gesture. If
persimmon.
Yeah. There we go.
Use persimmon.
So
there's a lot of way to come to having conversation.
So what we can do, if everybody's cool with it, how about in our Discord chat, if somebody feels uncomfortable with any kind of role-playing element or anything that we're doing, just type persimmon into our chat, and I will move on from it. Does that sound good?
Which chat?
Our current campaign chat that we have.
Okay.
Cool.
No, not Peace Domain.
But definitely it's good to have,
secret campaign chat not accessible Discord.
To the public.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Spencer, I chose Peace Domain by accident. I almost made your game so much harder on you.
Let's be friends, everyone. Friends.
Right. Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
No one can attack anyone. Until when?
You're attacking?
So.
You stop. You're attacking? You stop.
Stop it.
What are you?
Stop.
And you get Sanctuary, and you get Sanctuary, and you get Sanctuary.
F is for
everyone here gets Sanctuary.
It's you and me. And for anywhere at any time and all down here in the deep blue sea.
Oh.
Deep dark caverns.
Are we rolling? We're rolling stats.
Oh,
yes.
All that bird
are we supposed to roll them in D20 and then just enter them into our? Is that how you want to do it? Or?
You don't have.
I have the D&D Beyond roller.
You, whatever you feel comfortable doing. I actually still only have the player's character sheet up, so they won't be seeing the rolls that you make in Roll20. So.
All right, and typing dice roller into Google.
So, okay.
So actually, I do want to take this minute. The D&D Beyond, I think it's free to sign up, and you can utilize their character sheets. Maybe it's not a whole lot. And it's cool because anything that you do end up buying and you have access to, the sheet automatically competes for you. It's delightful.
That's wonderful. So, as everybody is who's kind of getting into it, so one of the good things, I think Justin highlighted a good point earlier, is that helping out your DM is incredible. The DMs will never say no to help, and for more experienced players at the table, doing their own thing or chiming in to help out a newer player when they can is fantastic. Because like I'm about to do right now, I'm giving Christian all of my attention so I can help him make his own character sheet. And so one of the first things that we should tackle, because why everybody's doing dice rollers right now, is because we're rolling up stats. And these stats are how you interact with the world. There are 6 of them. And if you look down at the screen at the player's sheet, they are on the leftmost side. And I'm going to go over them for you using the tomato example that I love doing. I love going over this. So you have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, how these stats interact with the world is like this. The tomato example that explains this is the strength stat used with a tomato is how hard you can throw that tomato, right? That's how it goes? It's like throwing the tomato?
Is being able to crush a tomato in your bare hands.
Oh, it's crushing it. So there we go. So strength is how well you can crush that tomato. Dexterity is how well you can juggle that tomato, right?
I think so. That sounds right.
Yes.
That's a good example.
Constitution is how much of a bad tomato you can eat before you throw up. It's kind of like being able. It's like your health.
Or being able to eat a slightly off tomato and not get sick.
Yeah, exactly. Intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, while wisdom is knowing that a tomato has no business being in a fruit salad. And then charisma,
Charisma is being able to tell you that tomato-based fruit salad is just called salsa.
So there you go. Yeah. So that is the tomato example to kind of explain the stats with like essentially, sorry, I'm writing down stuff. So essentially these stats are different ways you can interact with the world, and depending on what you're doing, you use a certain skill. So what we're doing now is we're going to be rolling up Christian's character's stats. Now, how we do this is we get 4d6. Oh, where's my dice? Oh, there they are. Hold on, I'm going to grab my dice. So we're going to take... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Do your thing.
So we're going to take 4 d6s. And like I said earlier, d6s is just the nerdy way of saying taking a normal dice.
A 6-sided dice.
A 6-sided dice that you use in everything.
For die, and the number is how many sides it is.
Yeah. Now, more modern tabletop RPGs use different ways of doing this, but the reason why we take 4d6s has a long history. There's my d6s right there. See them all? Look how pretty they are. So the reason why we take the d6s is because back when D&D first came out, we didn't have dodecahedrons with 20-sided dice. We didn't have d12s with 12-sided dice. We didn't have all these fancy dice. They had 6-sided dice. So the whole game was played with just d6s. And Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you just took 3 dice, you rolled it, and that's what you got.
Oh, yeah, hardcore rules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and then that's the other thing. So what we're doing is we're rolling 4 and taking the lowest number out and using that for our stats. And then we get to assign what numbers we want to go where to make our character proficient in certain things and certain skills compared to others. This is very different from the original way of D&D because they would just roll 3 dice and do it down the line. Their first roll, that's strength. Second roll, that's dexterity. Third roll, that's constitution. And then whatever you got at the end, that's how you decided what class you played. Because you're like, well, I wanted to play a cleric, but, my intelligence is really high. I feel like I gotta play a wizard. So...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was just like, oh, well.
Yep.
Oh, and to play like a paladin, well, once those came in, because those didn't come until like much later, but they were like holy knights and stuff. But paladins, you had to have like 4 good skills. They were ridiculous.
Yeah.
You could never play.
So, Christian, what can you go ahead and start rolling 4d6s and take away the lowest number and read me kind of like the different totals, and I'll go ahead and put them down in the list, but then we'll rearrange where we want to put them where based on your bard. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So go ahead and start rolling.
Yeah, my first roll is 13.
13. Okay.
My second roll is a 12.
All right, pretty good stats so far.
Let's see here. My third roll is 11.
11.
Going down as I roll. One by one. Next one will be a 10.
10.
18. Get him.
Oh, we lost a dice.
Let me re-roll that. Oh my god, there we go.
Is it 10?
It is not a 10.
Oh.
It is actually a 14.
Nice. Okay.
That was 3, right? Oof. Okay, that's a 7.
Okay, so Christian just got a 7. Now, different DMs play with different rules. What I'm gonna say is that, and this is how I play my games too, if you roll lower than an 8, go ahead and re-roll that stat. In older editions, you would have to play with those really low stats, but 10 is your base. 10 is a +0, and we'll get into modifiers here in a second, but if you roll less than an 8, I always have our players re-roll, and I believe that's a general rule that is accepted.
We're on the 5th roll here, is it?
Yes.
Okay. That out. Okay. That's an 8.
8. Okay, well, we're keeping that one.
Yeah. All right, last roll here. God dang it.
It's another 8.
That is a 13.
13. Okay, overall, not bad stats. Okay.
Not bad.
So, you have 2 13s, a 12, 11, an 8, and a 14. So, do you have an idea of where you would like to put your stats? I can give recommendations based on your character and everything, but I think as we discussed before, your main modifier that you're going to be using for your bard is going to be charisma.
Correct. Yeah, so of course I want to put the 14, the highest one, in charisma.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. And what modifier does that have at 14? Is that a +1?
That is 14 is a +2.
Oh, it's a +2. Okay.
Yeah. So how this works? Let me pull up modifiers real quick and go over that real quick. So how modifiers work is that these stats that we're using right now, the big numbers, those don't usually come up that often. The main things that we're going to be using is the modifier that Christian just mentioned. So modifiers, let me kind of go to it. It should bring it up. Sorry, I'm trying to find the page real quick. Here they are. Okay. So modifiers right down here, and on our right side, ability scores and modifiers. Let me zoom into that real quick. Get that real nice and close. Okay. So, ability scores and modifiers. As you can see, going from 1 all the way to 30, these are the modifiers that you mainly use. So as you can see, a score of 1 is like a -5. That means when you take a d20, the dodecahedron that you have, which is what you use for most rolls in D&D, to determine how well you perform a skill or attack or whatever you're doing, you add a modifier to it. So as you can see, if you have a 1 in something, every time you roll that 120, you're minusing 5 right off the bat. It means you're pretty terrible at it. And as you can see, as we go up, it keeps increasing every 2 numbers, all the way to 30, which is going to be a +10. A thing to note is that naturally, you cannot get higher than a 20. A normal character, when you're leveling up, 20 is the max stat you can get. And as you know from rolling 3d6s, the most you can get starting off right off the bat is an 18. So Christian got pretty average stats. A 10 is going to be a +0 for him. His 8 is going to be a -1. And he was just asking about the 14. As we can see here, a 14 is a +2 for him. So under charisma in 14, I always like to put +2 right underneath it. Oh, that's a good question, guys. I want to ask you. So I always write the bigger number in the bigger square, and in the small circle, I do the +2. What do you guys do for that?
I do the opposite.
The opposite?
Yeah.
Just because the modifier is what's used more.
Yeah.
In the game. So I want that to be more visible.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So there we go. I've switched it around. So Christian, what are you placing next?
Yeah, so I think probably the next most important stat for me would probably be Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So and I have a couple 13s, right?
Yes, you have 2 13s.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna put a 13 in Constitution as well, which means that's a +1.
Mm-hmm. Constitution, no matter what character you are, is never a bad choice, because that is how much health you're going to have, and we'll go into health and everything when we get to that point. But go ahead, Christian.
And then with the so I've thought about it a little bit. So going as far as where I want to take my character, I think the next skill it'd probably be intelligence here would be the next one that I'd focus on.
So your other 13 is going into intelligence?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Let's see here. I have an 8, a 10, and a...
You have an 8, an 11, and 12.
11 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy for me here to say for my strength as a bard, not super worried about that being high.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go ahead and just put my 8 in strength.
Strength is going to be your dump stat.
Yeah.
So all that means is that essentially a dump stat is kind of like your weakest skill, you know? Christian is deciding that he has to put that 8 somewhere, and he's deciding that strength, you know what? I'm going to leave my other characters to do that. What the heck is this thing? Sorry, a mysterious box appeared on my screen, and I don't know where it came from. Anyways, keep going, Christian.
Yeah, so that is... Sorry, what is the modifier for that?
It is...
-1?
Yes, -1.
All right. And then, yeah, so this is where I think decision needs to be made between wisdom and dexterity.
Mm-hmm.
I know my whole idea with having intelligence as one of my 13s was that I'm going to be, and with my background, I'm going to kind of be, I'm not going to be up in front, right? I'm going to be wanting to kind of spell cast instead. So I'm not necessarily worried as much about being able to use weapons that require dexterity.
Yeah.
And everything. So I will probably just, since it's 1 point difference, I'll probably put the 12 into my wisdom and then 11 into my dexterity.
Okay, perfect.
So to consider that, so you're gonna get the actual +1 with the 12. Are you gonna be wearing heavy armor?
So that's so.
The reason here's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it just depends. I don't
your
really
dex,
know.
That +1 will go into your armor class. It will also go into your, which I'm guessing if you do attack it, it'd be with like a short sword,
rapier.
Or a rapier.
Yeah.
like a ranged weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Fair.
So that's
you can add that +1 to your attack and your damage there.
Yeah.
Also for your dex saves, which are pretty big in this game, getting that +1's huge. I mean, with the wisdom, you do get the +1 for your wisdom saves, which is also like a big save. But you have you're a bard, so you probably have a lot of stuff against wisdom saves already.
Their saving throws are
and that's
dexterity
where-
and charisma.
Well, yeah, so maybe
Okay.
to offset, you might want it in wisdom to offset because it'll help with some of the skills. It'll give you that +1 to your wisdom saves, which you might not have plus anything to because that you're not proficient in it. You'll still get your proficiency bonus to your dex saves, but then again, your dex saves will be all better. So I don't know, kind of wherever you want. Just those are some things to consider.
Yeah.
As you're putting your character sheet together.
Absolutely. So Justin brings up a fantastic point is that while we normally think of just like strength and dexterity, dexterity is going to be ranged weapons where strength is melee weapons. Dexterity also plays a lot into your initiative, as well as since you're going to be bards only wear light armor, or I think they have access to medium armor. I'll have to double check on that, but essentially that means that your AC, your armor class, whether or not they can hit you, is going to be based on mostly your dex stat. So on top of that, if you look at your skills that we have here, just to the right of all of your stats, acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, and athletics, to the right of them, you'll see one of the 6 stats abbreviated. And that shows you that when you roll that skill check, like when you have to perform acrobatics, whether you're balancing on a tightrope or juggling or something like that, that is going to be using your dex stat, as well as if you're proficient in it with your proficiency bonus. So that's a good thing to keep in mind is like, do you want your character to have a lot of wisdom so they can be good with perception checks, analyzing what's around you? Do you want them to be good with intelligence checks, get a +1 and have a good investigation? Or do you want that +1 because right now your dexterity has a +0? Do you want it in your dexterity so you can be good at acrobatics or sleight of hand checks or stealth checks, something like that? Lots of decisions. And don't worry if you're having a hard time with it.
I think this is actually a good time to think about what Dalton said about thinking about what kind of character you want to play.
Yes.
And then tailoring your stats and stuff to mix that. Because that is really good advice. And honestly, some of the most fun characters I've had where I'm like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to be a giant psychic bird. Make it work. You use the Aarakocra stats and the Psi Knife.
Yeah.
Rogue subclass. Yeah, it's perfect.
I think I want to play a cat person that shoots people with arrows.
Like it.
And Christian, like I said, build the character you want to build. But whenever I'm having a hard time decision, like I said, I always go to that quick build and kind of see what they recommend. And they say charisma is highest and followed by dexterity with the entertainer background. But like I said, do you want your bard character to be better at perception or investigation? Keep the stats where they are because that's what you want to focus in on.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is ours. How many can I select to be proficient in?
So, let's go over that next. So, I've brought back up the Bard section, and the first few paragraphs are mostly just talking about, like, inspiration about the Bard, kind of things that we already covered over. It goes into quick build, and then it talks about class features. So, it's going to go into proficiencies, but the first thing it likes to talk about is hit points. So if we want to skip down to proficiencies, we'll do health here in a second. One of the things it says is that proficiencies that you get, and I like to put this down right below skills in that other proficiencies in languages or something like that. I like to put that down there. Yeah. It says that you have light armor proficiency. So that's going to be where your kind of dex skill is going to be good at and coming in handy. It says that you have proficiency in simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. Very cool. Very good. Those are going to be the kind of weapons that you have. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Okay, cool. 3 musical instruments of your choice. Saving throws, dexterity, and charisma, and skills. So, you get to choose any 3. Most classes have like choose 2 from a list or choose 3 from a list. You get to choose 3 of any. And what that means is, if you look down at the table, it says you have a +2 proficiency bonus just at level 1 that increases to +3 at 5th level. So let's go ahead and just right at the top of your page where it says proficiency bonus, just go ahead and add a +2 in it. Do you see where that's at, Christian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
+2.
Yeah.
That means you choose 3 of these skills on this list, and then you just add your proficiency bonus to that whenever you make a skill check with that. So that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about bards.
Yeah.
You're just skilled. You're just skillful. So what if you have
Jack
any
of all trades.
Yes, exactly. That is one of their features too. So if you want, I can explain how these different stats work. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to go over every single one, especially since we have less than an hour before our first session 0 is going to be over. So is there any skills that kind of stand out to you, or do you want some recommendations from the team as a whole to kind of like help you build your character?
So my question is, how does this work with the background I choose? Because the background I choose also has skills attached to them.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Let's go down to backgrounds. Did you want to take the quick build advice and do entertainer? Or I can go over some of the other backgrounds real quick.
I was thinking about playing a little differently.
Yes.
And being a sage.
Perfect. Okay. So, as you pointed out, these backgrounds give kind of just like little bonuses and stuff like that, as well as giving suggested characteristics for your character. But I'm going to save those for last. We'll go over bonds and flaws and stuff that you get from Sage here in a little bit. So Sage. Basically, this background is you spent years learning the lore of the multiverse, and basically you're kind of like, you get a feature called Researcher and all this other special stuff. But as you can see in bold, right underneath Sage, you get skill proficiencies in Arcana and History, right off the bat. So let's go ahead and check off Arcana and History. Both of those are intelligence-based.
Yes.
So what that means is, how we calculate the number that's going to go to the right of them is we take your intelligence modifier, which is a +1 right here, and we are going to add your proficiency bonus to give you a +3. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
It sure does.
And you put it in +3 for both, because both are using your intelligence and your proficiency bonus.
Yeah.
So you just get that right off the bat.
Awesome.
Let's go ahead and put Sage at the top for your background as well. And let's see what else you get. You get 2 languages of your choice. We can go over languages here in a second. I'm just going to put 2 languages of your choice here for right now.
That's right.
And a bunch of equipment. If you see all the equipment right there, it's good to just kind of like put that in probably like where your equipment little stat is, because you get a lot of just like, I don't know why that is posting weird, but all that equipment you get as well.
Okay.
It of course goes through personality traits, ideals, bonds, and stuff like that. We're gonna go over that when we kind of get to your that next bit, but let's kind of flesh out a lot of the other stuff first. And see how it says Researcher right here? This feature, Researcher. When you attempt to learn or recall a piece of lore, if you don't know that information, you often know where and from whom you can obtain it. Usually this information comes from a library, scriptorium, university, or a sage, or other learned person or creature. Your DM might rule that the knowledge you seek is secreted away in an almost inaccessible place, or that it simply can't be found. Unearthing the deepest secrets of the multiverse can require an adventure or even a whole campaign. So, really cool feature that adds to your kind of background. Just innately as a feature, being a sage, you kind of know where to find information. So I usually like to copy that, or at least put like feature researcher, like to copy that little just segment, and I put that under my features and traits all the way on the far right side there. But you can put it wherever you like. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. So those are the main things you kind of get from your background. We'll go over specialty and all that fun stuff in just a little bit. Let's go ahead. You know what? I think I skipped ahead a little bit. Let's go over your race, because that's a really good thing that you get bonuses on too. Out of the 4 main races that we saw at the top there, is there one that you kind of wanted to do?
Yeah, I think I looked into it. I think I want to be a high elf.
High elf, perfect.
And more specifically, a moon elf.
Moon elf. Ooh, okay. So, as you can see here, under elf, it gives you 3 different, like 3 or 4 paragraphs of kind of like talking about elves and their history and stuff. Very good if you wanted to get more into the role-playing aspect of it. And then, if you come down here, elf traits. The first thing you want to increase, your dexterity score increases by 2. So that's fantastic. Already, since your dexterity was at a +0, now it's going to be at that +1. Before we add that in there, did you want to keep your dexterity at that +0 and your intelligence +1 and your wisdom +1?
So now that's making me think, because if I do make my if I switch that with my wisdom, then I actually get a +2 for my dex.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Which
helps with
probably...
AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be an extra point in your AC, which would be really nice.
Spencer, while Christian's thinking about that,
yeah,
we're trying to keep everything to the essentials kit, right? Like when I'm picking spells, try to limit myself to just what's listed there.
Yes, if you could.
Anyone else have any idea what race or class there? Well, we talked about classes, but anyone else have any idea?
Ashley's raising her hand.
Ashley looks excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was during the break to the audience. Christian and I are going to be twins, so I am also going to be a high moon elf. So it's going to be pretty great, guys.
Awesome.
That's exciting.
I'm planning on a stout halfling right now. A little stout halfling wizard.
See, I love that you're playing a halfling, because I'm planning on playing a dwarf.
Damn it.
And I feel like there could be some banter around.
There could. You especially given the fact that you finally won't be the shortest person that you hang out with, probably. You'll finally have someone smaller than you.
Yeah. It'd be really funny. Part of me kind of wishes that like the giants, or something like that, or a half giant was in the essentials kit, because then like Justin can play a half giant for the luchadors, and it'd be like a half giant dwarf duo.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what's really good? I am going to be taller than you.
Oh, for once in your life.
For once, yeah. Well, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. I finished creating my character, Dr. Chris Rivers.
Ooh.
Variant human, Cleric 1, whose alter persona is the great and mighty Shonuff.
Shonuff.
And you cannot mess with me, man.
Shonuff.
They ask who's the baddest around, and I say me, and they say Shonuff.
Shonuff?
Shonuff.
By the way, it's like a throwback to the a really funny movie if nobody's ever seen it. It's called The Last Dragon. I think it's called The Last Dragon. It's pretty funny. Pretty great.
That's incredible.
It's like musical numbers and karate. Great. Great. Possibly one of the best things that the 80s have ever had to offer anyone.
Oh, I'm getting excited already. This sounds awesome.
So I think my dwarf's name is going to be Bjorn Mountainside, and his alter ego is the Mighty Hammer, bringing his I guess the mighty. Well, actually, yeah, the Mighty Hammer, because he brings his great axe down on people. Don't ask; it's a thing.
Actually, I don't want to get sued. I'm gonna change my wrestling name because I don't want to get sued by the people who made The Last Dragon. I did it because I love that movie. That movie is so much fun. It's amazing, and you should see it if you've never seen it. But copyrights.
Yeah, gotta love that. I think the joke will be that my name is Hammer, but I use a great axe, so it'll be like.
I love it.
Just be using a warhammer? Nah, doesn't do it. Warhammers don't do d12s, man.
Sweet. All right, my alter ego is called Faux Show.
Faux Show.
No, I don't like it. I'm workshopping the character. Leave me alone.
I don't like
We can go back
either.
We can go back to Christian then.
No, we'll come back to it. Yeah. Let's do other stuff. I'm workshopping the character.
Okay.
Dr. Chris Rivers isn't changing. Dr. Chris Rivers in character. Dr. Chris Rivers is thinking like, nah.
I like Dr. Chris Rivers and Bjorn Mountainside as a duo, though. Like, I feel like somehow, like, they met up before, and then the bards met up, and then I think it makes sense. Maybe like Dalton was with the bards, right? And then somehow they met up with this wrestling group, right? This wrestling troupe, and that I think maybe that's what kind of happened. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh, I'm the diamond anvil if you're the hammer, baby. And we'll do like a whole like heel and hero thing.
Yeah.
Diamond anvil.
Yeah. My guy has a negative charisma score too. So
does mine. Oh. I'm the doctor. I'm just doing this to help out.
Yeah, we're not good at performances.
Oh, but you know what? I took the entertainer background, so I do have performance as a skill.
Yeah, I do too, but I have a
plus one, baby.
Yeah, +1. Yeah, I'm proficient. +1.
I'm proficient. Get the +1. Have a negative charisma score, but that's okay. I'm a grumpy doctor.
See, what I love about. I'm sorry. I know we're trying to get back to Christian. I just need to say this real quick. I was looking at what you get with the entertainer background.
Yeah.
And you get a disguise kit.
Yes.
And a costume.
Yep.
And it makes me like really like everyone to have. Yeah, like either like some or like what if we were all like just like had like tree costumes. Like all right.
Also, no, canonically, my costume's like Ric Flair. It's like big. It's zebra striped. Yeah, and there's like purple feathers coming off the sides. It's long, silky. It says in like little rhinestones on the back. Says Diamond Anvil.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. This is gonna be beautiful.
I have a big hat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big hat.
But
it's like a top hat, not a wide hat.
Yes, Ashley?
Got a question. So, I am also playing a bard. I swear I'm not completely copying Christian's character, even though it seems like it. But it says under proficiencies, for tools, it's 3 musical instruments of your choice.
Yes.
So, like, can I flavor that how I want? Like, does it have to be musical instruments?
What else were you thinking?
Like, I don't know, like like if I wanted to say like juggling pins or something like that, or would it have to be like, is it supposed to be musical?
No, I think that's perfectly acceptable if you want to do like juggling pins or something like that.
Or like card tricks or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly reasonable for a bard character like yours to do. And that's a very good example of like DMs. Be open with your players. If something happens like this, like try to think of a creative solution that doesn't like affect the game horribly. And what I mean by that is that this brings up a really good tale with Gary Gygax. Back in the day when it first came out, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't like these huge swaths of places, forums where you could ask all these questions. When people bought D&D and they had questions about the rules, they would grab a phone book, find Gary Gygax's name in the phone book, call him up and ask him, what does this rule mean? This is what happened at our table. What do we do in this instance? And Gary Gygax would respond to these people with like, well, how did you resolve it at the table? And oftentimes they'd be like, well, you know, there wasn't this rule for this certain situation, but here's what we did. This seemed fair. And Gary Gygax goes, okay, did you guys have fun? And whatever they said, if they said they had fun, he's like, okay, great. That's the rule. That's what you thought was the best way to approach it. And I think that's really baked into D&D's DNA, is this thing about, like, fun is the most important one. Rule, I would say. It's the rule of cool. It's being able to kind of, like, adapt to the circumstances and be like, all right, well, the rules didn't have a rule for this, but let's see what would be reasonable and what would work in this situation. So Ashley, for example, is like, hey, my character is going to be, you know, this like acrobatic troupe person, and I don't want 3 musical instruments. Can I have proficiency in like juggling? Absolutely, Ashley. Take that as a proficiency.
So, can I say a trapeze?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Ashley, I don't know what background you're choosing, but the entertainer background has like a section for like what your routines are, like that you're.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I'm planning on doing the entertainer background. I hadn't gotten there yet.
Cool. All right,
hey, Spencer.
Yes.
Quick question, because I feel like it's going to end up coming up for me and Justin.
Yeah.
So since we both have negative charismas, and those are kind of our dump stats, right?
Yeah.
Performance is tied around charisma.
Uh-huh.
Would there be an argument for a good old wrestling performance, right? For that to be an athletics check, which is something a little bit more agreeable. Strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might depend on the move. Right?
Yes.
Like, if you're gonna like lift me up, then that's a strength check. But then for me to like fall down and like sell the slam, that's that's a charisma check. Performance.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say that's gonna be dependent on the situation, but it could be reasonably argued that if you're like doing a performance where you're like lifting someone up and pretending to like, you know, like slam them on your knee without actually hurting them, that would probably be an athletics check or like an acrobatics check to kind of like, you know, not use your full strength and to kind of like slowly ease them down in a way that doesn't hurt them. Or like, you know, bouncing off of some on the ground or something like that, like catching your fall but making it look like something. That could be performance, or that could be acrobatics. It definitely depends on the certain situation, and I'm going to leave that ruling to the moment.
Yay! The moment.
Now, I don't want to take away from your guys' questions, but I do want to make sure that we get through Christian's character. So I'm going to shift back to him real quick. So Christian, one of the other things I did want to point out, I'm not sure if you saw, but high elves also get a ability score increase 1 with their intelligence. So that's something also to keep in mind, that if you're 13 in intelligence right now, that means you would up that to a +2 modifier if you keep that where it's at. So did you come to a conclusion?
I did switch my wisdom and dexterity.
Okay.
So I now have a +2 dexterity and a modifier of 0 in wisdom.
Yeah.
my intelligence is now a +2 because that has been bumped up from 13 to 14. So with that, then of course I had to change the intelligence skills that I had innately from my Sage background, which now has even better modifiers.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
By 1, of course, because that's intelligence went up by 1. And with my race, I
get a proficiency and perception.
Yes.
With keen senses.
That's just a +2, but that's what I have there.
Still very good.
I am deciding here. I believe I'm gonna go with performance and persuasion as my modifiers here, or my other skills, and I have one more, I believe.
Yes, you do.
Innately. So, question is, what do I want that to be?
Going off of kind of like the luchador troupe and stuff like that, you could always put it in acrobatics and kind of use that to your advantage when you're performing tricks. But if you want to keep to if you want to keep to more of your background, like the scholarly knowledge that you have, you could always do something like investigation. Like you're really good at figuring like things out of like a scene or doing that kind of stuff. Or maybe you're better with your hands more so than your body, so you do sleight of hand instead, which does your dex and such like that. Or you can lean more into your charisma and stuff like that, and kind of maybe you want to be an intimidating scholar for some reason. That's lots of different options there.
I think I like investigation.
Investigation.
Yeah, I feel I'm a very, very scholarly and studied bard that eventually, it may not seem like it at first, but all of these studies and this knowledge I have accrued for me is a way to create my ballads. And my music, and for me it is a part of the innate power of my music is because of this knowledge that I've accrued.
That's awesome.
So that's where I'm going with that, and I think that works good a little well.
That's awesome.
Rather. So
perfect. All right, that's great. Some of the other things that I would write down, but we're not necessarily going to go over right now because I want to get to the more important things. You also get Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry, Trance, Elf Weapon Training, and 1 Wizard Cantrip based from your High Elf stat. Those are things we can kind of go over as we're playing, but basically elves don't have to sleep. They just go into a trance for about 4 hours. Elves Weapon Training gets really cool. You get cool access to like other swords and stuff like that just because you're an elf. You get training in that. And the Wizard Cantrip is really cool because you're already going to be a bard with your own cantrips, but you get a bonus cantrip. So it's really good to kind of like take a look at the wizard spell list in between now and session 1 and kind of see what would be good along with the bard cantrips you'll have access to. So
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Along with that, now with me being an elf, and a high elf specifically, I can speak common and elvish.
Yes.
But it also, with being a sage and a bard, I can also understand or know 3 other languages on top of that, correct?
Correct. And it's actually not from bard, it's because you're an elf and with the sage background. Because sage gets you 2,
elf,
and then elf gets you +1. But yes.
Yeah, right.
I always say to players, you don't have to pick this right away, because there's a lot of different languages out there. But if during player discussion, as you find out, oh, we have a halfling, oh, we have a dwarf, maybe you wanted to learn how to speak dwarvish because you wanted to sing to the dwarves as well as like, the humans and stuff like that. You can figure that out later, but it's very good to know that in your back pocket. The only thing I ask is just like, don't metagame or cheat and kind of be like, oh, I haven't picked my language yet. Oh, we're talking to a troll? I know Trollish now, or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
So
I'll come up with that.
Yeah, but that's fantastic. Really good stuff to know. That should be all of your race traits from being an elf. Let's go ahead and I'll navigate back to Bard. Oh, before we move back, do you have any other questions? I want to make sure I'm not skipping over anything.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I think we're good there. It's just filling in just like hit points,
yes,
and initiative, armor class with whatever armor I have, and yeah.
I forgot. So your speed, it said under your elf speed is 30 feet. So under speed, I would just put 30.
Awesome.
We'll go into more of that later on. A good note to know is that when you move on a grid, usually one square is 5 feet, so you can move 6 of those. But we'll get there when we get there. Your initiative at the top there, that is going to be your dexterity modifier, so go ahead and put a +2 right in there.
Okay.
We'll go to armor class in a second when we're getting your equipment. But first off, let's do hit points like you said. So, if you go under class features of the Bard, you'll see you get 1d8 per Bard level. That means 8-sided dice per Bard level. So, hit dice, well, that's going to be more so when you take a rest and stuff like that. But we'll get into that when we do rests and everything, when we get into combat. For now, under your hit dice, just put 1d8. We'll go over that later. Hit points at first level, it's going to be 8 plus your Constitution modifier. So, your Constitution modifier is a +1, so you have 9 hit points. It's okay, most people are squishy at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, if it makes you feel
Everybody's
any
super
better,
squishy at the beginning.
I only have 13 hit points, so...
Spencer, what did you say?
What?
What did you say about the hit points? I'm sorry.
Oh, he's squishy. He only has 9.
Oh, okay. I think that's more than me.
Oh, so... we'll worry about increasing hit points as we get later on, but hit points at higher levels, there's 2 ways to do it. You can roll a d8 and take a chance. Whatever you roll on that d8, that's what your health points go up. Or you can take the average +1, which is 5, plus your Constitution modifier. So each time you level up, it's going to be 5 plus your con. And it's really good to know that if you ever increase your Constitution modifier in the future, all your health points go up. Because that modifier counts for all of your levels that you have. So it only increases per level, which is really nice. So proficiencies, we kind of went over this a little bit already. You got light armor, you got the simple weapons and all that kind of stuff, 3 musical instruments of your choice. We'll get to all of that when we go down to equipment. Once again, if you don't know what 3 musical instruments you want yet, you can just write that down and kind of decide between now and session 1 what you want those to be. The important thing is, though, saving throws, dexterity, and charisma. So, let's go back to your character sheet, and do you see the saving throws on the left-hand side right underneath proficiency bonus?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead and click in those circles for dexterity and charisma, and put plus, or add in your modifier, plus your proficiency bonus under the dexterity and the charisma stat. So,
alright, so those are both 4s.
Yeah.
Looks like.
So what that means is when you are the target of a spell, or when I ask you to make a saving throw to resist something that uses dexterity saving throw or a charisma saving throw, you get to use that +4 for each of those. Everything else is just going to be your base stats. So strength -1, constitution, that's just +1, intelligence is +2, and then wisdom is just that +0. So as you can see, like, if you ever have to make a strength save, you're not going to be good at that, but your dexterity and charisma, you're pretty good at those. Does that make sense?
It's okay if it doesn't right now.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So, next up, there's the skills, which we already did. You chose your 3. Equipment. So this is really good. You get the first bullet point, you get a rapier or a longsword or any simple weapon. I'm not sure what you kind of wanted to go for this one. A good thing to know is that a rapier is a finesse weapon, which allows you to use your dex modifier instead of your strength, compared to a longsword, which I believe, and somebody correct me, is only a strength weapon.
Yeah, longswords are strength weapons.
Yeah. And then simple weapons are not going to do as much damage as a rapier, so to say, but sometimes if you want to have a certain style or flair to it, you can do that instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the simple weapons?
So, if you navigate, let me find the page here in the player's handbook. Here it is. Okay, so it is page in the rule book. Oh gosh, I accidentally went a little too far, I think. Okay, if you go to page 42 in the rules, you'll see a whole table list of all these different types of weapons and such. So, as you can see, there are simple melee weapons, simple range weapons, martial melee weapons, and martial ranged weapons. Now, Dan, who's playing a fighter, can use everything on this table. But since you only have proficiency in certain things, you can only use those weapons. Like, you do have martial melee weapon proficiency in the rapier and the longsword, but you don't have access to, like, a battle axe or a great axe or something like that. But you have access to all them simple melee weapons. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm saying, does that make sense a lot?
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a lot of choices, so I would just say in between now and session 1, you can kind of pick your weapon. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I recommend the rapier just because since it's a finesse weapon, it has that properties of finesse. It means you can use your dex modifier instead of your strength, which is really good. So, let me go back to Bard. If you want to stay on that, you also, slightly below that, there is, you get to choose between a diplomat's pack, a diplomat's pack, or an entertainer's pack. And that's just going to be, like, a variety of different items that just are good, like, beginner adventurous stuff. And I just, like I'm saying before, in your free time, just kind of like look through those different items that you can have and pick whichever pack you think would be better for your character and what you want to do. Does that sound okay?
Where's this at? I'm sorry.
So, under equipment, you can choose between, underneath rapier, longsword, or simple weapon, you can choose between a diplomat's pack or an entertainer's pack. And if we go back to page 42, okay, maybe not 42. If you go to page 43...
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. 44. I'll get there. Page 44 has all these different packs. So Diplomat's pack has, like, a chest, 2 cases for maps, blah, 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 a lot of, like, writing utensils and stuff like that. Whereas an Entertainer's pack has, like, 5 candles, rations, water skin, and a disguise kit. So a bunch of different stuff. So I would just, like, take time to kind of peruse that and see what you want to do with that in your own time.
Okay.
You also, while you have proficiency with 3 musical instruments, you get one musical instrument, as well as leather armor and a dagger.
Stabby stab.
Stabby stab.
All right.
Stabby stab.
So,
then that leather armor.
Yes.
Little tiny stabby stab.
On page 41, I believe. Yes, 41. You'll have all the armors and stuff. And if you see there's leather armor under light armor, it shows that your armor class is going to be 11 plus your dex modifier.
Sweet.
So your armor class, is 13.
13 AC.
Yes, there we go. All right, we're getting there.
We are getting there.
All right, let's go back up. All right. So after that, you have spell casting, so we have a variety of different bard spell lists. Just to explain what spells are. So how spells work. If we go back to your handy table, at first level, you can know 2 cantrips, which cantrips are kind of like a spell 0. You can cast them at any time. They're never going to go away. You can cast them as much as you want. And you can know 4 spells. Bards work a little bit different from like wizards and all that kind of stuff. And clerics can know as many spells based on kind of like their wisdom modifier. Whereas bards, you just get a certain amount of spells right at the beginning, and as you progress, you gain more and more. But you only get 2 spells of first level, like 2 spell slots. That means you can only cast your first level spell twice.
Yeah.
So you can know 4 different spells, but you can only cast, of those 4 spells, each of them twice. Well, not each of them twice, meaning that... How do I explain this? Can somebody help me out?
What are we trying to...
Explain how spell slots work?
Yeah,
oh, okay. So they're
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Justin.
No, go for it, man. You
Yeah.
I'm sure you got it.
So basically, spell slots, like, you have... there are different levels, right? So each spell has its own level, and you can cast those spells at different levels, and it doesn't relate to what your actual level is. Your actual level, so let's say you're a level 5 wizard, right? A level 5 wizard can cast, I think, up to a 3rd level spell slot. And so basically it shows in the tier, right? So you might have like 3 at level 5, you might have, and this is off the top of my head, so don't quote me on numbers, but you might have like 3 first level spell slots, 2 second level spell slots, and 1 third level spell slot, right? So that means like you can cast like there's a lot of flexibility actually in it too. So this technically there's an asterisk with this, but you can cast like more minor spells, right, that are like the level 1. And you can cast those like 3 times, right? So you can cast 3 like more minor level 1 spells. Level 2 spells are gonna have a little bit more heat on it, right? And it goes up from level 1 to level like I think 9. Right?
Yes.
And so basically you don't get them to cast them as much, right? And I think it's a long rest in between that you have to take before they recharge.
Typically, there are ways.
More simply put, though, a spell slot is a time that you can a time that you can cast a given spell at a given level. So if you're kind of more familiar with a mana system, you can kind of think about it like each spell can cost a variable amount of mana, but each spell slot or a given spell slot would cost X amount of mana.
You could almost think of it like charges, almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like, charges is a great way to think about it.
Like you have 3 charges to use this kind of spell. And I think there is one thing I do want to know that's pretty cool too that I saw here. That if you have, so let's say you can do one first level and a second level spell, right? And you have 1 first level spell slot available, you have a second level spell slot available, and you want to cast something at the first level, you technically can use that second level spell slot and like cast 2 first spells. It's not like you're pigeonholed into casting, but it doesn't work the backwards, right? You can't cast a 3rd level spell at level 1. Or you can't use a level 1 spell slot to cast, right? But you can use like a level 3 spell slot to cast a level 1 spell.
Yeah.
Or a level 2 spell. So
as we're starting out, since you're a level 1 bard, what's important is as a level 1 bard you have 2 first level spell slots, which means over the course of a day you can cast 2 first level spells. It's as simple as it is, like as we're starting.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the best way to do it, is to probably keep this simpler, since that's what we're trying to do.
Let's say, for example, out of the first level spells, and if you can navigate to, I believe, page 12, do you see the first level spells list for the bard that you have?
Yep.
Okay, let's say since you can know 4 spells, you know Charm Person, Disguise Self, Featherfall, and Healing Word, right? So you know 4 of those spells. You only have 2 first level charges. So that means out of any one of those, you can cast 2 spells. So let's say you're fighting, or you're about to go into a fight, but you want to try to sneak past the guards. So you cast Disguise Self to try to hide and disguise yourself to get past these guards. That is 1 of your spell slots gone. You can only cast 1 more spell, but you still have access to all those spells. So you can cast Disguise Self again. You can use Featherfall if you fall from the top of the building. If somebody goes down, you can cast Healing Word. Boom, there's your other spell slot gone. But then you can't cast any more magic until you take a long rest. So that's really good to know for when you're adventuring and kind of going out. You know those spells, but you can only cast them so many times. And at first level, as you can tell, it's you don't have a whole lot of spells you can do in one day, but as you kind of level up, you can progress a lot further, which is great. So the important thing is, what I would do is I would just know that you can know 4 spells, and I would just kind of peruse the first level spells and the cantrips and kind of pick your spells from there. You can know 2 of those cantrips and 4 of the first level spells. And if you're having a lot of trouble what you want to do, under the quick build, it also gives you suggestions on what spells you should take. It recommends taking Dancing Lights and Vicious Mockery cantrips, along with the following first level spells: Charm Person, Detect Magic, Healing Word, and Thunder Wave, which are all fantastic first level spells.
They really are.
But you don't have to decide that right now, necessarily, unless we do our combat. But I know we're running out of time because we only got 12 minutes till 10. So, let's go ahead and show the next thing that we have is Bardic Inspiration. So, Bardic Inspiration, let's go down to that thing. Oh, sorry, before I go on, do you have any other questions about spells real quick?
Do I have to worry about spell attack bonus?
Yes.
I see here that my spell save DC and spell casting ability is my charisma modifier, but what about my spell attack bonus?
Yes. So, I'm back on the player sheet. If you scroll down, the next sheet that should be in this kind of set, there are 3 sheets in total. The next one kind of is more so about character appearance and like traits and all that stuff. But your third sheet is your spell list. So you have a variety of different, like, this is where you can keep all of your spells together under cantrips and spells and all that kind of stuff. But let's go to the top of the page, like you said. So spellcasting class, we are a bard. I almost put cleric. Your spellcasting ability at the top there is your charisma. Charisma. There we go. Spell save DC, I believe, is 8 plus your charisma modifier plus your proficiency bonus, right?
Yep.
Perfect. So, Christian, for you, that's 8 plus 4 because you have 2 in charisma and 2 from your proficiency bonus, right?
Yes.
So, for spell save DC, it's just 8 plus your charisma modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So as you can see, as you level up and you increase your charisma and you increase your proficiency modifier, what the spell save DC is, it raises that difficulty for people to save out of your spells. Just like how you have saving throws, the enemies will have saving throws when you cast spells at them.
Awesome.
Now, your spell attack bonus, I believe, is not your proficiency bonus, it's just your modifier, right?
It's your modifier plus your proficiency for your spell attack, and then your DC is 8 plus your proficiency plus your modifier.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
So spell attack bonus is 4. There we go. Because that's 2 from your charisma modifier and 2 from your proficiency bonus. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So whenever you cast a spell and it says to either use your spell save DC or your spell attack bonus, Now you can refer to this page and know what they are.
And your spells will let you know what you need to do in a given instance.
Yes.
Usually speaking, they'll require, I think especially for the bard, they'll require saves. But they'll be specific, and they'll also let you know what kind of save that you need to ask the DM for.
Yeah. So don't worry too much about that.
Yeah, like Dalton said, I mean, you've got 2 of them. You can cast any of them 2 times.
So, the last thing I want to go over with you is your Bardic Inspiration. I'm just going to kind of read through it real quick with you, kind of explain the ability, and then the last thing I want to do, because I know everybody has a time constraints and what they need to do, so I don't think we're going to extend it past 10 o'clock, so we're not going to get to that combat encounter. But what we are going to go over is just kind of like our characters, what their names are, and kind of let's have that discussion. Those 3 questions I had at the beginning, that I was kind of going to ask everybody, like how the characters all know each other to kind of influence the role playing and the story. Let's go over that. I'll kind of like set the tone for the adventure, and then we'll end this session there. How does that sound for everyone?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Bardic Inspiration. You can inspire others through stirring words or music. To do so, you use a bonus action, which will go into action economy when we have our first combat, on your turn to choose one creature other than yourself within 60 feet of you who can hear you. The creature gains 1 Bardic Inspiration die, a d6. Once within 10 minutes, the creature can roll the die and add that number to one ability check, attack roll, or saving throw it makes. The creature can wait until after it rolls the d20 before deciding to use the Bardic Inspiration die, but must decide before the DM says whether the roll succeeds or fails. Once it's used, it's lost, and they can only have 1 of those dice at a time. You can use this a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier. You regain any expended uses when you finish a long rest. So I believe you can use Bardic Inspiration twice since your modifier is a 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you hit level 5, it becomes a d8. No, but just to kind of go over real quick, we discussed like doing rolls and checks earlier. So let's say, like you decide to use one of your 2 Bardic Inspirations to give to Ashley's character. And you're like, so Ashley has her Bardic Inspiration, it's only been like 5 minutes, and I'm just like, okay, Ashley, you're about to jump over this pit. Can you give me an acrobatics check? And she rolls, and it's like a 11. And this seems to be like a pretty big pit. Before I say whether or not she succeeds or fails, since this is an ability check, she can use that Bardic Inspiration that you gave her, which is that d6. She rolls it, and then adds it to her ability check. So say she got an 11, rolls a d6, it is a 4, so that adds 4, it's now a 15, and I go, okay, you make it over the pit, a-okay. So that's where Justin was kind of talking earlier about how bards are great support characters, even 2 of them, because like Ashley can give Bardic Inspirations as well. So you guys can be dishing out all these inspirations. So like essentially, if it's something you really need to do, you need just that little push over the edge, the inspiration could be the saving grace, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bonus action, so you don't have to waste an action, like a main thing doing it. You can cast a spell and then give somebody some inspiration too, which is really cool.
And you get those back on short rest, right?
I believe so. Let's take a look.
That's awesome.
That might be a higher level.
Oh, is that something you get later on?
Yeah, it's a long rest right now.
Yeah, I think you get them back on a short rest at a higher level. I'm not sure what level. But...
Yeah. And we'll go over short and long rests when they kind of come up within the campaign. That's something we can kind of talk about later. So.
Yeah, small potatoes.
But, Christian, you basically have your character!
You want to introduce? Are we doing the introductions now, or
real quick? The last thing I want to cover before introductions is to talk just briefly, real briefly, on suggested characteristics and stuff like that. Remember when we were building the sage background, and underneath it says suggested characteristics such as personality trait, ideal, bond, and flaw. The thing I love about D&D is if you know nothing about writing, if you have no idea how to make a compelling or dynamic character, D&D lays it out for you. And what I mean by that is that all these tables, you can pick one of the things on there to add to your character a good amount of like cool stuff that's interesting about them, or literally it has on here personality trait D8. You take an 8-sided die, you roll it, you get a 3, boom. All of a sudden your character, I'm used to helping out those who aren't as smart as I am, and I patiently explain anything and everything to others. Boom. You don't have to use that. You can make your own personality trait, but say you just want some help along the way, D&D has all these for you. So what I encourage you to do is to kind of like look through these kind of stuff, these ideals, bonds, and flaws, and kind of pick out what you think would be good, or just get inspiration about how you could form your own character if you want to do that. But the thing is, with this or with alignment, you don't need to use those. If you think you can make your own compelling character, then just go from there. Does anybody want to touch upon that before?
Yeah, Christian, while you're taking a look at all those, so if anybody's like, wondering if they're watching and they're wondering why would anybody want these, sometimes these are really helpful if you're putting together pre-made characters where people are like, oh, what? I'm even confused by the character making process. You can just kind of be like, okay, here, boom, this is how your character is. This is how you want to play him. Or if you have somebody that's like, oh, I'm not really sure about the role-playing thing, and it's like, okay, well, this will, like, help you figure out who this person is. And, because a lot of times you have, like, newer players, too, that'll roll and be like, oh, I don't like that, and be like, how do you want to do it?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's sometimes they just need, like, that thing to be like, they need to be empowered to, if you're a DM, like, empower your players to let you know what they want. And sometimes they'll be, especially with newer players, they'll be a little more timid.
Yeah.
So.
All right, cool.
Also, new players, just jump in. Go for it.
Just go for
so
it.
I'm trying to... I try to be a bard to kind of ease myself into it, even though I'm kind of like...
Yeah, you ease yourself in with both feet.
Yeah.
But before we do
best of both worlds,
one last thing before character introductions, Christian, do you have any questions about anything else that kind of came up, or that you have questions about character or the creation process?
No, I think we're good.
All right, cool. So, are we ready to introduce our characters or talk more about what we're doing?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Let's do it. All right, Dalton, would you like to lead us off with your character?
Sure. I am going to be playing as a stout halfling wizard named UFO Fizzwizzle.
Nice.
UFO is a pyrotechnics expert. Is how I'll put it. He likes big showy explosions and fun loud noises. He might though be a little bit worried going to this town we're headed to. What is it called?
Phandalin.
Yeah, he used to perform here, and he may or may not have scarred or burned a noble. Not on purpose, definitely not on purpose. It was definitely an accident. But he might have an eye out for him while he's there.
Saucy.
Perfect. All right, that's awesome. Cool. UFO, the stout halfling wizard. Perfect. That's
the
great.
silence of knowing that coming.
All right, Justin, would you like to introduce your character?
Yeah, I am going to be playing the variant human cleric, Dr. Chris Rivers. He left his practice of medicine and is now a luchador on the road, fulfilling his dream of high-flying rope action and roars of the crowd. He has his alternative persona in the ring is called Diamond Anvil, and he's got his garb is all purple and gold and green trimmed, and his shield has a little diamond crusted, diamond dust, little shiny kind of anvil on the front, and he wields a mace. Ironically, actually, no, he doesn't. He wields an Aquila. Because I went and I changed out my mace for an Aquila. It's a simple weapon.
What's an Aquila?
It's it's a short spear. It's a very short spear. It's got like a really long blade.
Yeah.
And a kind of longer handle, and it's kind of like a sword, kind of like a spear. It's like a very short spear, very long sword.
Yeah.
And it was a popular weapon in Africa in antiquity.
I think that was in the Tomb of Annihilation. I ran Tomb of Annihilation module, and that was a big weapon in that campaign, if I remember correctly.
It is, but it's also the only simple weapon that gives you D8 damage.
All right, Dan, can you please introduce your character?
Yeah, so I will be playing Bjorn Mountainside. He is a dwarf fighter. He after living inside of the mountain and staying close to home for the first 50 years of his life, he decided to go out on the road, yearning and calling and seeking something more, something greater. Didn't know what it was until one day he was traveling along the roadside and saw the great Diamond Anvil performing.
A handsome older man.
And he was captured. He was starstruck by the awe-inspiring performance of this luchador. And after the performance, he went up and said, "Hey, I want to get in on this." And so that's how they became the Mighty Hammer. And
Chris Rivers looked at his new dwarf friend and he said, "Damn right you do." And he put it right there. Boom. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful job, guys. Beautiful job, Dan and Justin. That's Dan brought up a good point. That was one of the questions I asked earlier. What is each character like most about every other member of the adventuring party? Dan just did a great job of kind of creating a good backstory that him and Justin played off each other to how Bjorn, I hope I pronounced that right, Bjorn and Dr. Rivers met each other. And that's a great example of role-playing and encouragement that you should give to your players. So great job, guys. Next up, Ashley, would you like to introduce your character?
Can Christian go first?
Oh, sure, yeah. Christian, would you like to take the lead then?
Sure. My character's name is Novo Adar, a high elf, moon elf rather, bard, that can be quite a recluse at times. Being a sage, he is oftentimes more interested in reading scrolls, tomes, and other texts and talking to people. However, don't let that fool you. When needed, he is quite charismatic and an exceptional performer. However, alongside his twin, though, often not the spotlight of attention. He finds beauty so powerful within song that it can be used to change the world, and he strives to use his vast knowledge of his studies and adventuring within the world to imbue his own songs with this great power. He is 6 foot tall and with blue eyes, long white hair, and his skin quite mostly alabaster in color, but with a hint of blue. And Yeah, that's about it. Sorry, I didn't really write about like how, as twins met everybody else. But
No, that's okay, Christian. You did a great job at describing the physical appearance of your character. I think you did a great job at that. A lot of the other things can come from later on. I think that the main point is not to get hanged up like, oh, I have to figure out how we're all related. I have to figure out this. I think just kind of like having some starting points of your character is very good, and then you can expand upon it later. Don't feel like you have to have 100% everything right now. And I think that's the important part of D&D is that maybe you start out with not knowing your character fully because they don't know themselves just yet. I think you did a great job at describing who your character is, and I already have a good picture in my head of what Novo kind of looks like. And I think that's a great starting point. And with that, Ashley, do you have... Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I can go.
All right, hit us.
All right. First, brother, how do we spell our last name?
It's Adar, Adar.
Right.
You do that.
I knew that.
Silly.
Still workshopping the name, but I think I'm gonna go with Nivara Adar. I'm really going for us to be the obnoxious twins where our parents named us both with N names. But I really like that our initials are Na. Anyways, I am also a bard. I am a high elf, moon elf, entertainer background. I am significantly more obnoxious than my twin Nova. I love insults, love insulting myself, love insulting others. In fact, I've insulted quite a few of the wrong people too. So I've got that in common with my wizard friend. But at least mine are just mental scars and not actual burn scars, so that's always good. I've also got a lot of chaotic energy kind of going on. I'm into the performing because I am into the creativity. Kind of think of like the weird artist who has their weird vision that not necessarily everyone else can see. So like when you go into an art museum and there's a weird sculpture of toothpaste, and I get really offended when you see like my routine and you think it's too weird. So like just like I would like the artist would get really offended when you see the toothpaste statue and like not understand what it means. I get really offended by that. But I do have very obscure views of what art is. I'm more on the acrobatic side of things as opposed to like a musical performer like Nova is. So my big things are kind of like tumbling, so trapezing, tightrope, things like that. And then kind of doing that whole jesting thing where I'm going to be making fun of lots of people, trying to be comedic. But, yeah, I want fame. I want people to recognize my art. As far as what I look like, obviously very similar to Nova. I'm going to have the alabaster skin with a bluish tint and blue eyes with gold flecks. Where we're going to differ is I dyed my hair blue because I wanted to be different. I was born with the same hair. Did not wanted to stand out. Again, wanted to be obnoxious. So I went with the bright blue hair. And I think that kind of covers everything on my end. I hope.
All right, perfect. Hey, great job there, Christian. See, what you did was create a good base for Ashley to base her character off of. Since you two are doing like a twin dynamic, you two have this already, like this great backstory with each other about how you interact with each other and your family. And that's something you can even do in your free time if you two want to discuss, like, oh, do we have parents? Do we have, like, what are our parents doing? Or anything like that. Ashley was able to kind of take your backstory that you built, the good foundation, and expand her story off of that. So I just want to say kudos to both of you for doing a great job at that. And the last thing I want to do as a group before I kind of give the adventure background and end the session there, how did this troop, because I think all of you were discussing the luchador troop are traveling together. How did all of you meet? Did we discuss that yet?
We did not discuss how the luchadors met the pyrotechnic.
Yeah.
Met twins who do a joint musical tumbling act.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be some sort of tournament or something.
I like
Gotta
that.
be some sort of
there's
like
some sort of
tournament or
of
contest.
acts.
Or
Yeah,
just,
and
like,
we
mad
were
at the
like
festival.
rivals, and we like competed against each other, but like we all got like kicked out.
Was it on? Did they bring it?
We all
it-
brought
was-
it, but
all
like
brought it?
people
That's-
brought it better than us. Like
Oh.
Yeah, none of
Yeah.
us
Because we weren't working together.
Yes.
Oh.
we
Working
weren't
cohesively.
working
They were a team.
together.
Yeah, we're all just
Saw.
saddened at the end, just drinking the night away because we
Yes.
lost, and then we're like, you know
Yeah.
what?
We're a team. They
You
were
know
a
what?
team.
Join
That's
each
what
other.
they
We're
had
gonna
that we
get
didn't.
together
They
and
were
we're gonna go
teams.
beat up a
There were
dragon.
8, 9 people over there. We had like 2 each.
Yeah,
We need
We're
some
gonna-
luchadors, Nova.
Guys.
We need them.
Shit, I
We're
wonder if
gonna
they had
get
12
together.
people.
and instead of
Wasn't
performing for the tournament, we're gonna go beat up a dragon.
Yeah, because this
We'll
isn't
get
about
fame
losing
that
at
way.
all. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
And everybody should stop asking me about it.
UFO, what are you thinking about, like, because do you consider yourself as, like, charismatic and crazy as all these individual members? Or, I mean, like, of course, Christian's character, Novo, seems to be kind of like the more recluse, like, twin in the background. But how are you feeling about, like, I guess the tournament that you guys lost? Like, how did you get involved in all this?
Yeah, so UFO, not very like reclusive. Think like a mad scientist
Mad
type
scientist, okay.
guy, like frizzy, like white hair.
Yeah.
Like very much like, why am I blanking on the Back to the Future?
Oh,
The
Doc.
Brown?
Doc Brown.
Yeah, Doc Brown.
Doc Brown.
Caleb, yeah, like a Doc Brown type situation.
But much
He was at the tournament like performing in like the Battle of the Bands-esque type thing.
Wait.
And he was very distraught because nobody seemed to get his art, really. He was blasting off all this beautiful all these beautiful works of art, and everybody just seemed to like run scared for some reason. He just didn't get it.
Did you say that art is an explosion?
Yeah, a lot like that.
Huh.
I posted in Discord, but you're
Nice.
you're basically Millhouse Manastorm.
I showed it on screen. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, cool. So, fantastic backstory. I love this. I want to be conscious of everybody's time, and we're already 13 minutes over. I promise you, in the future, I will end sessions closer to the 10 o'clock. So I apologize to my teammates for that, but I think this was a very fun... I think...
15 minutes is no big deal, man.
Okay.
We were having a
Zero
good time.
only running 15 minutes long. Kidding me? When was the last time we played a session 0 that only ran 15 minutes long?
I know.
All right.
I know.
You want to talk about it? I think you did a great job. I'm amped for all of this. I'm amped to be bringing you guys
Quality
RPG
content.
and quality content every Sunday from 7 to 10 Eastern. I am so pumped for this.
Yes.
I wish I could curse right now, but we want to post this on YouTube later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swear in the first few minutes, it's fine.
Oh, well...
look at all their faces. They're all angry at me.
No, Dan, I love you.
You can swear in YouTube videos, just not in the first few minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I get demonetized.
I mean, so...
Balls are fun to play with. Basketballs, footballs,
Ping
all
pong
those
balls.
kind of balls. Ping pong balls.
Sometimes you can put ping pong balls in fun places.
Oh gosh. Okay, so let me read this adventure background. Let's go. Okay.
Like a little ping pong ball shooting gun.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
Right.
like-
Yes, of course. Okay.
Or like a shot back on reverse and we'll shoot the ping pong balls everywhere.
Or like,
Do that.
a cat
Ping
will
pong
knock
balls and
ping
shot
pong
back,
balls.
shoot them everywhere.
Yeah, or cat will like knock ping pong balls under couches and stuff. You know, like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
This is not where we sign off.
So, thank you for joining us today. Let me read this adventure background, and then we'll sign off for tonight. So, This adventure included in the Essentials Kit is called Dragon of Icespire Peak. Now, let me read you this beginning section real quick. Driven from the lands farther north by more powerful dragons, a young white dragon named Cryovane has descended upon the Sword Mountains, claiming the snow-capped range as its domain. Typical of its kind, Cryovane is dim-witted and cruel. The dragon patrols the skies around Icespire Peak, surveying its territory while hunting for food and easy treasure. With each passing day, the dragon's domain grows as it ranges farther across the land, preying on anything it can catch with its claws or freeze to death with its icy breath. Sightings of the dragon are becoming more common, as are its attacks. Now, if you look on the screen, I pulled up the map of the Sword Coast. You guys have traveled from Neverwinter, preferably, where I'm guessing that's where the tournament was at, in Neverwinter, that traveled down to Phandalin? Or did you say you wanted the tournament to be in Phandalin and it's just wrapping up, or...?
We say it was in Neverwinter and we're like leaving in disgrace.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Perfect. You guys have made it to Neverwinter. To Phandalin. So next week I will introduce the town of Phandalin in the adventure starting from there. So, thank you guys for joining us today. Like Dan was saying, we'll be back next week at 7 p.m. to continue on this adventure and starting with our session 1.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. So we'll teach you.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Yes.
We were using the Dungeons and Dragons Essentials Kit. You can purchase that at most stores and on Amazon if that's something you're interested in. I think they have it at like Walmarts and Targets and pretty much any store. You can. It's pretty accessible and it's pretty affordable. So if that's something you're interested in, that's what we're.
And remember to support your local tabletop role-playing game centers. A lot of those places can also sell like trading cards as well as board games. You know, a lot of businesses have been hit hard by the pandemic, and I know everybody's probably tired of hearing about it, but some of the things that are getting hit the most or the hardest are these tabletop role-playing game centers or these gaming stores.
Local small stores.
Yes. So make sure, I would recommend, like Ashley said, if you don't have a local gaming store near you, you can purchase it on Amazon at one of the major store brands nearby. But I always recommend buying at your local game store first, but to each their own. We highly recommend purchasing this game and playing it for yourself. Would anybody else like to say anything else?
Good.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody that stuck with us for the stream.
Please like and subscribe.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
Tell your friends about us. See you next Sunday.
Yes.
See you next Sunday.
Yes.
We're posting on YouTube. We'll be on Twitch next week. See you guys then.
Meow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.